what this is. But if you're a pharmacist, your second part of your brain...
Are we live?
The second part of your brain didn't go, maybe I should check this.
Maybe you should check. We're just talking about people being silly with dry ice and swimming pools and dying.
I've got no sympathy at all.
You were quite gleeful about it. Hello, everyone.
Schadenfreude.
Yeah, it is a little bit. Sometimes it's nice to have that.
Why have we got keys in?
It's because there was there was a ghost at the door.
Somebody at the door. What was that show? ITV. Grot bags.
Grot bags. She died a couple of years back.
Oh,
poor
really?
old Grot bags.
She's done a while though. She was old when I was a kid.
Yeah, yeah.
What was that show called? It wasn't called Grot Bags, was it?
This is where we need.
I don't know what you're.
Get out of it. No, the witch on the broom. Somebody at the door.
She was.
Who was the other guy?
Green,
the goodie.
yeah. Oh God.
Scarecrow. No, what Scarecrow? Where's all Gamage? Was it?
That was a different. That's the crossover we never got. We've got Alien versus Predator, Batman versus Superman.
So who was he
we need
then?
Grot Bags versus Wurzel Gummidge.
Grot Bags and Emu.
Emu. Yes, Emu was in the same universe, wasn't
Rod.
he? Yeah, I think they had like.
Rod and
Was that
Yeah,
the show
I'm sure there was some weird crossover they did do. I don't think it was called Emu versus Grot Bags. That'd be amazing.
Emu versus aliens. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Terminator
I totally watch
turns
it.
up.
Yes.
What are we doing?
Hello, everyone.
on?
We're doing a podcast as you slip further and further into dementia.
I know it's going to be a good show when Charles gets his booklet
When he
out.
gets his beautifully handled, like, look at mine are just the demented scribblings of a madman.
Is that a gun? I can see that.
Yeah, exactly. Just draw like kill them all. Whereas Charles always has really neat handwriting.
Natural bodily essence. Yeah. What is it? What is it in
I beg your pardon.
In what?
Oh, it's our fluids, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
vital fluids, isn't it, or something?
Vital bodily essence.
I haven't seen that.
It's the abbreviation because it's the code, isn't it?
Yeah, and he's got some weird
natural bodily
obsession. They're all
essence.
trying
Is
to
it?
take their
Yeah.
It basically, that communism basically takes away your virility and your semen because he's
Your
insane.
manliness,
It's George C. Scott. I can't remember. He's got some weird obsession with fluids.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's why I just drink rainwater and green alcohol.
Yeah. It's a good film there.
Right. So
Anyway,
Maybe, yeah.
yes. Hello. We're talking about witch hunts. This is
We
it's
educating.
our guide. We're going to do educating theory, but I thought we might run out of steam, so I'm going to.
There's tons to talk about. Man.
Oh, thanks.
There'll be tons to talk about that I don't know as well. There's tons of topics as well.
Yes, but I just thought let's just go with a guide to.
A guide to. Okay, we'll call it.
And I will be going back and changing our history episodes to the guides too, because we're not giving a full history of anything.
No, it's not exhaustive. I mean,
Yeah,
mine,
so
mine
guides
is just very
makes it easier. So we're going to do a guide twos, and this is our guide twos.
No, it's not twos. Then it's got a guide to.
This is our a guide to witch hunts historically.
Yes.
So I've no idea what we're doing other than that. So who wants to start?
Shall I start, Charles?
Yeah,
Shall I
go
start, Charles? Okay, because I kind of have a feeling that you might have done the more metaphorical witch hunts, but I could be wrong. I realise we probably should have coordinated this outside of the show and be like,
He
which
spends
bit
more
do you
time on public transport. So.
think- fleeing for his life. But that's what it is. They're a witch. They're all like, he's a witch. Get him.
Have I ever met a witch? I know of.
I love that
I know of
you're the
witches.
only person in my life who can think that might be a
I
possibility.
think I did.
Did you?
She wore black lipstick.
Oh,
She was
for
into
God's
that
sake, that's a goth.
Oh, right.
Right.
That is what
She was
they
a
are,
depressed
man.
teenager. Leave her.
It's just an emo. I think I met a witch once.
Yeah, she was into that vampire stuff. Is that a witch?
No.
Let's just be
that different?
That's the next Vialucci, like the next no clip.
She had the teeth done and all that, like properly.
Yeah,
like
so
the
she's
same.
just she's a goth, and that doesn't mean she's legit. Like people at Halloween, that's not real. That's people in costumes. It's not.
witch. So you get white witches, and people do witch.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
call.
yeah.
I suppose they call themselves Wiccans now.
There's
Yeah,
Wiccan
yeah.
and white magic. Because there is a differentiation between white magic and black magic.
Yeah.
Black magic's the negative stuff, whereas white magic is something, using those supposed energies or forces for positive things.
Yeah,
it's all
African
very-
places still use white thing. White witch
It's
stuff.
lots of culture. I mean, it's still a witch hunting, and the actual act of hunting witches and torturing and executing people for this is still happening
Yeah.
today.
What witch means witch. It's got to be. A
Well, it has
Latin word,
different.
isn't it?
It's
Witch.
there's different words for it. So in
Wicca.
Britain, the word used to be for a long time was cunning folk. Cunning folk. So it's just that it just meant, but it's kind of come to mean a sort of catch-all for practitioners of magic, particularly to do with spells and potions and things like that.
But it's interesting that there is a differentiation between the words witch and wizard.
Yes.
Whereas a wizard, you kind of think of Merlin and Gandalf and kind of and although you can get evil wizards, you still think of them as being kind of
good.
Good.
It's almost as if we live in a patriarchal society where powerful women are therefore must be evil. That was an interesting. Okay, so we'll start at a very
that is a point.
Yeah, there is, and that was something that somebody raised. Okay. But I'll come to that. Is that so originally, although it does say in I think it's Exodus, in the Bible, it said, "Thou shalt not permit a sorceress to live." Interesting, sorceress, not sorcerer. There was very little we'll focus primarily on Christian Europe because that's what we think with witch hunts, although they are prevalent. And I found a slightly frightening, I don't have the actual figure, but a frightening fact. But right up until sort of, up until probably about the 13th century, although there was a gradual shift before that, witches, it was just like, no, there's no such thing as witches because the devil doesn't have any power on earth. It's all Christ. Christ has his power, and God, of course. So all of that is nonsense. So it's just, we don't, it's almost like, let's just ignore it and it'll go away. That was the kind of prevailing attitude.
What's interesting is actually doing a bit of reading is that the church hierarchy were quite against this. They were like, they made several degrees, several popes and several big sort of Christian leaders and kings and stuff made lots of decrees saying there is no such thing as magic. This is superstition. There's no such thing as witches. Stop persecuting these people. Stop doing these things because this is nonsense. Because God is all powerful.
So they were protecting them, sort of thing.
Well, there was a difference between because people were still doing these things and these things still happened sort of at ground level, at street level. But it's interesting that the church, effective pretty much until the Reformation, until Protestantism sort of came about, was the Catholic Church was kind of against it.
Because we think of the Middle Ages as just this period where everyone just slaughtered everyone and anyone could do whatever they want, and actually there were quite the strict rules about you can't do this, you can't do that, and they even knew that many people thought that there was no point torturing people for information because they'll just tell you what you want.
Right. Yeah.
So basically just didn't believe it. Then from about the 13th century onwards, they started to believe it more. It broadly, if they did try people as witches, it broadly came under the idea of heresy, rather than something particularly evil. It's just you're going against church doctrine and you're teaching things that aren't true. So there were people being tried and killed for witchcraft, but not to the peak that it hit in the sort of 15th, 16th. There's a period, they say, from about the middle of the 15th century to the middle of the 16th century, and that was the kind of peak. That was peak witch hunts.
So what, the Salem trials?
That was later, yeah. Oh. So they did that, but that was the peak. That was where the most amount of killing took place. Right. That was where you had the Inquisition. Although the Inquisitions was something that came about, and again a few hundred years before. This was the time when it was peak, when there was the sort of, I suppose we could call it mass hysteria now, and it was different across the continent. It was very prevalent in Spain, in France, in Italy, in Germany to a degree, or what we would now call Germany and Austria, and also in Scandinavia. In England, never that much. Oh. Never all that much. They reckon about 500.
Also in Scotland, apparently.
Scotland was very well, and so much so that James VI, who later became king of both England and Scotland, in 1590, he heard about witches, and he presided over the trial himself. In 1590, so the king, so that'd be like the queen turning up and being like, I'm in charge of this. And he wrote a book in 1590-70 about demonology. So people did genuinely think that witches were a real problem. Yeah. There was a book called, it was almost like a guide of how to find and horribly murder witches. Yeah. Called the Malleus Maleficarum, which sounds really like it's out of Harry Potter. Malleus Maleficarum, which means hammer of witches.
Oh. But who wrote what?
I can't remember. Who wrote
I bet that's a great metal album.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's the new Sabbath.
Witch Hammer. That's the hammer of the witches.
And so that was it was, and I think it remains one of the biggest selling biggest printed books of all time. It was a guide basically, and in 1460, prior to that, 1468, the Pope said, okay, when it comes to torturing people for information about whether they are or are not witches, all bets are off now. We've relaxed the legal limits, so that is when the shit really hit.
So they say you can.
And so you can. Yes. So we have the Malleus Maleficarum. Sorry, was printed in 1486. So it's towards the end of the 15th century. that it starts to kick in, and then it's.
I was thinking interesting because that is sort of time of around the time 95 Thesis. It was obviously 10 years later 95 Thesis, but it's that same kind of disenchantment with
that's what it's
with the established church and sort of different ideas sort of coming out.
Yeah, I think if the Reformation hadn't happened, they probably wouldn't have been so concerned with the ideas of witches and everything. But it was right. Everyone's, we need to. The Catholic Church, this is, and the Protestant Church, obviously later. Kind of, it almost seems like it was a reaction to, right, it's all getting out of control here. We've got people questioning us. We've got people doing this. We've got people coming up with different ideas. Gnosticism is coming back. Right, let's rein this shit in. Anyone who doesn't stick by the orthodoxy is a heretic, and they've got to get burnt.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So that's why often people were burnt, because burning was often heresy. Was for heresy. In this country, we tended to hang witches. Hooray, much nicer. Burning was usually for treason. And that was for women. Women who committed treason were burned at the stake. Men who committed treason were usually hung, drawn, and quartered.
So would any men have been?
Yeah, men were
a few,
but they weren't being sort of like called wizards.
One of the last people killed in the British Isles for witchcraft was a man unknown, but this was in 1863.
Bloody hell.
And he
in
was
this
known.
country.
Yeah, and he was known by Dummy. He was known
in when? Sorry,
1863. Really?
Dummy
the Witch of Sybil Headingham. He was basically not officially killed. He was basically people went, this guy's a witch, and they beat him to death and drowned him. Yeah, so lynching. Yeah, the last official I've got is well, in England it was 1716. In Scotland, it was 1727. I
Where
don't
was
have
the 18 one.
I've got 1682 as the last official execution. In
might have been for...
What country was that?
In England.
Oh, in England.
Yeah, I mean, often people were killed later for basically what would have been considered a witch trial, but they were killed for just murder. So, for example...
I think it was for heresy. I think you're right. I think the later one was it was witchcraft, but they were technically done for heresy.
Yeah, so they would often get them on other charges, but it was it was under witchcraft. Do you know when the
last? It was like an old version of the Terrorism Act. It's sort of like
essentially. I mean, often witchcraft was usually it wasn't although there was on the continent particularly. It was about going against church doctrine. You're a heretic. In this country, often witchcraft was more to do with you used witchcraft to murder somebody or to plot their death. Yeah, yeah. So that was usually what this country focused on in terms of witchcraft. We weren't that bothered about people devil worshipping to the same degree that they were on the continent where they just slaughtered. An interesting thing was often where people accused one another of witchcraft is because they got their land. So it was like, if you shot the person... so one of the most famous witch trials in this country, the Pendle witch trials, was basically two families accusing and counter-accusing each other, and then they all got killed.
They all got slaughtered.
Yeah, but then a follow-up... I think the only survivor, or one of the few survivors from that family, was then tried, and it sort of was the beginning of the end for witch trials in this country, was... the one of the survivors of that period, because I think 11 people were killed, or it might have been 10, from two families and two extended families. But then one of them was tried, and then it was a 10-year-old boy. He testified against them, against that person and others, and then admitted that they'd lied. They'd been put up to it by a priest who presided over the Pendle witch trials, and so that kind of fell apart. They didn't forgive they didn't offer a pardon for the Pendle. They've tried to call for a pardon for the Pendle witches, but that's not happened.
And did it get resolved? They all died.
I mean, some of these people were hung, some were let go. The last person, it was quite interesting. I might just ask do a little quiz. When was the last person tried under the Witchcraft Act?
Oh, there was an act, was there?
Yeah. So there were several different acts, but there
must have been that 1861, no? The one you said about Witchcraft Act. In what country?
In this country. So what it was designed for was to
when was the plague? The Black Plague.
Which one? Because there were several waves of it, weren't there?
What was the big one that killed like a quarter of the population?
You talk about the Great Fire.
No, I think it was the 13th century. The Black Death.
Yeah.
Well, that was there was various. The Black Death killed a lot of people, but it was actually the plague I think it was the 13th century that was worse.
Oh, yeah, it was before.
That killed something like 10% of the population of Europe. Yeah. But yes, it's way off. 1956.
What?
Victoria Helen McRae Duncan. Now, the reason they used the act was basically just to stop her because the Witchcraft Act actually was designed to stop execution of witches.
Right.
So it just says you can't accuse someone of being a witch,
Yeah.
and have them. You can't witch hunt. You can't, because often these witch hunters were self-appointed. The most famous, Matthew Hopkins, who worked during the English Civil War, he made that up. He said, "I am the witch hunter general appointed by Parliament." Nope.
Yep. and made a lot of money doing it.
Oh yes, yeah.
There we go,
They reckon, I think it was something like out of the roughly 500 people in this country between the sort of period of, between the 15th and 18th century in England, right, only about 500, which compared to what happened in mainland Europe is actually a tiny amount. So they think between that period, 90,000 people were killed for witchcraft on mainland Europe, but in England
people?
only 500. I mean, I say only, but again, versus
Yeah.
90,000,
Yeah.
that Hopkins was responsible for about 60% of those in a 2-year
hell.
period. Yeah, in a 2-year
During the
period.
Civil War, he just
Yeah.
went mad.
Yeah, he just everyone
So
was
what happened to this
accused-
chick?
Oh yeah, so basically she was this chick. So she
Was she like a suffragette or something? Is that what they used to...
no. She was. She claimed to be that she could speak to spirits and all that kind of thing. So yeah, the Witchcraft Act of 1635 was basically abolished witch hunting, and it was to prevent the execution of witches, and you couldn't claim that someone else was a witch. And basically it was to basically get her out of business, because she kept it came to, because no one gave a shit about, people saying, oh, your Auntie Ethel says, blah, blah. No one cares about that. But they were concerned that there was a leak somewhere, because she'd said that a ship had been sunk, and at the time not many people that knew, apart from the family, although someone did a calculation and said it probably worked out to about 20,000 people, because however many people on the boat, they told the families if there's 10 people.
She knew, so they assumed.
So they said, but they were thinking, oh God, is there? Because obviously they didn't think she was really speaking to sailors from the ship. They thought, oh, she's got some insight. There's a leak somewhere, and we need to plug it. They sent along 2 undercover policemen, and they said that there was literally one of the ghosts was literally quite obviously a man in a sheet stood in the corner, like you could see his feet and stuff. Yeah, basically, and said like,
reading the paper.
"Oh, your aunt has passed on." Nope, my aunt's alive. Oh, your sister's dead. Nope, she's fine too. Yeah. It was just like
dad.
So she was the last person tried
But
by any
why
kind
did
of.
they send the police to do what?
Because
to
they
catch her
thought,
out?
just to see if how she was getting information.
Oh,
so
right.
at first they thought, oh, she's a charlatan, but they did try her under the law. I mean, essentially, then you had the Witchcraft Act was repealed by the Fraudulent Mediums Act of 1951, which just said you couldn't. It doesn't matter about saying you could be a medium, but you couldn't make money out of it.
Right.
And now it's basically being a medium is under the Trade Description. Well, then it became under the Trade Descriptions Act, and now there's a different law that supersedes.
I remember
that.
years ago when I used to stand in the job centre with the cards on the wall, and so I was probably about 25, something like 24, something like that, and actually had a card for psychic phone. People wanted for a psychic phone line, no experience needed.
Can you just tap into the ether?
But I just remember going, motherfucker.
That's the sort
shit, do
of
they? Don't give a
I
shit.
guess it's the cruelty of telling people. If you just say your auntie says, "Oh, she wants you to live happily," and she wants you to know she's okay, fine. That's
But it's
okay.
never
But it's the money. That's the
Yeah.
thing. And like all these things, they keep them coming back. They sort of
Because you're not phoning up for entertainment purposes. People are phoning there for a reason. You're not
Yeah,
going,
often
do you know what,
because
I
they're
fancy.
grieving and
yeah.
whatnot, yeah.
So you're only appealing, like dealing with people that need help with something, and you're coming along and going, whatever they say, I don't know what they say.
They used to
In
when
the
I,
job centre, though, you fucking...
The job centre is amazing.
No
I think that's
experience
amazing.
needed.
I'm sorry. I know that's.
when I lived in Birmingham, we used to get cards through all the time, like loads, like every day, for like these dudes who were like, if you give me money, I will pray for you.
Oh, God, yeah.
Send me much money, and it was always in really terrible English, and they had a picture of some dude just being really aggressive.
Was it Theo?
And like,
It's just looking scary.
and it was just obviously such a con, and I bet they made tons of money because literally you just sort of.
But I think also could they be scary and be like, if you don't give us money, we'll put a hex on you type thing.
I'm always scared of the Lucky Heather people.
Oh, you don't see that much anymore, do you?
Yeah, I remember buying a little rose
Well,
off a
depends
gypsy
where you go,
lady.
mate.
They're chasing you on the
in
train.
in a shopping centre, a little gypsy woman saying, "Hello, love, would you like to wear this rose?" And it had a little bit of foil around it.
Yep,
and I thought, she's probably not got anything, but just for the sake of a quid.
I always
I don't need a curse. Like,
that was always the thing of like if you try to avoid talking or anything like that, if you just walk, but if you get offered one, at the very least, don't be rude.
Yeah, I mean, if she had a squeegee in her hand, I wouldn't have been too bothered. But the fact she had this,
The Lucky Heather.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we all have this idea of of curses and everything. But yes, So yeah, roughly 90,000 people during the kind of during what we consider the main witch hunting period were killed, but actually in the 20th and 21st century, they think in this sort of modern period more people have been killed because it still pervades in parts of sub-Saharan Africa, in parts of Indonesia,
India.
India. They were. There was, part of it is people are using it politically. So in Gambia, the ousted, I think his name is Jammeh, the ousted president just said that basically used witchcraft to basically lock up political opponents. So rather than, I'm locking up my opposition, I'm locking up witches who are dangerous and whatnot. And many of them were lynched, unfortunately.
Well, they had a special, sort of, I say black ops team, but a sort of off the books team who were abducting people and keeping them in sort of these camps and torturing and murdering them and stuff, and they literally kidnapped thousands of people. Since,
just under the guise
in 1 year, apparently, a couple 1,000 in 2009 in Gambia. Yeah. So this is a thing that's happening
because they still do believe in zombies and things, don't they?
And
you sort of
I think
understand if you haven't got internet.
There's a thing with albinos, isn't there? They have a real you have to kill and eat albinos. I'm not saying that's all because Africa is not a country for one thing,
but there's certainly some older beliefs and some tribal beliefs and more pantheistic beliefs
where there's no internet connection. These things pop up.
Yeah, but the internet connection tells us that the Earth is flat, that climate change is made up, that
9/11 was an inside job.
And all committed by the Jewish lobby or something like that. I think
who are the insiders, obviously.
Oh yes, and that there's lizard people. So I don't know that the internet necessarily is a beacon of light.
I know when there's a thing about
when
AIDS and even Ebola, when that was happening, the government was saying to people it's fake, it's not real.
There's now a thing with coronavirus where some in Iran a cleric was saying about rubbing special oil on your anus will prevent you from getting.
Well, they say in China these things pop up.
I'm like, well, I'm safe then already.
In China, as soon as they get anything that pops up to the disease, there's immediately these cures online become and the thing is you go, it sounds bollocks, even talking about the psychic thing, you go, but all you've got to do is send out a certain amount of leaflets. There is always going to be a certain group of people that will definitely do it.
Well, you think why do people still want rhino horn?
There's enough suckers out there. Yeah, there are enough suckers out there.
They're definitely there. It's just how many leaflets you have to put out to get them. That's
all you have to do is say it cures impotence. It will give you a big dick, or it will cure baldness, and men will just buy that in by the bucket load.
Small dick bald dudes,
small dick bald dudes who can't get out. I just buy and rhino horn.
Just please,
exactly.
What was
it's the what's the Homer with the when he gets the shampoo, doesn't he? That makes him really everyone.
He gets promotion.
Yeah,
and does really
all
well,
of that. Yeah.
There's a bit in. I think it's got cut out of this country, the comedy.
Yeah.
And one of the bits cut out, Len. It's the deleted scenes. You can see it online.
Oh, okay.
And he goes to his uncle, and his uncle's saying to him, "Can you transfer £3,000 from my account to my girlfriend's account?" And he shows a picture of his girlfriend, it's like a model in a swimsuit.
Oh God!
And he goes, and the dumb one, the fella's going,
"What curtain?
Yeah, why does she need?" And he goes, "Well, she has her bank account's been closed." Blah blah blah. Something Poland. He goes, "Well, this is an African. This is to go to Nigeria." Yeah, but you don't understand the thing. And he's going, and he goes, "Well, I can't do it today because the internet's closed on Tuesdays." And then he runs to the priest and goes, "I've searched his name. This woman, this model, she died." And I don't tell him.
All right.
He goes, "Well, you just sent the money. Got to send it first thing in the morning."
I always think it's whenever you hear they're probably going to sue us, but whenever, well,
yeah, go on.
I don't care.
Yeah.
It's
what
whenever
take.
Take the cookies.
What do you got? Yeah, I got nothing.
Not the cookies. Not the cookies,
yeah.
please. Yeah. We have a bowl of cookies.
Leave us one each.
Yeah, exactly. But whenever you see something paid by Western Union, you're like, oh, fuck off.
Why do you need that, man? Do you not have a bank account?
Yeah, but
I always think that.
Hey, sometimes when you're up a mountain, you need some money.
I don't understand how that company keeps going. It's synonymous with money laundering and
drug trade.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if you just hear Western Union,
well, I guess that's how it keeps going through money laundering.
Well, when I've been away in some places,
pay the deposit via Western Union.
Bitcoin.
Yeah, well, kind of, but there wasn't any ATMs or anything. So I mean, I just had to go to Western Union and I showed them my card and stuff, and they They sort of paid.
Yeah, this is where it all went wrong, Charles, wasn't it?
Well, they paid. Yeah, sort of. They gave me kind of the money, and then they charged my account, kind of thing. You know,
you went from owning your own mansion and driving a Ferrari to living in a flat that's on fire most of the time. And
you think with the internet now, like in internet banking, you go, why would you need? How has Western Union stayed around?
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm just like this is just clearly for money laundering.
Because even in the African now, you've got mobile phones and all that. You go, it's got to be.
You've got internet most places now.
Yeah, you can. And if you've got internet, you can do banking on your phone.
I'm seeing a lot of Bitcoin cash machines popping up now. Yeah. So it's holding on still. It's still holding on.
When I used to work for the gambling thing, we didn't do Western Union, but because it was like, you can pay by credit card, debit card, PayPal. I might have said PayPal, but anyway, yeah,
Gold bullion,
PayPal, and then there were a couple of others. We were like, I've never heard of these companies. One of them we had to stop dealing with because they were like, one of the broadcasters went, we feel that this is their anti-money laundering practices are not sufficient. So we're like, and drop, because there's a big thing with
due diligence is not good.
Yeah, because there's a big thing with there's always a concern with online gambling for obviously for obvious reasons, but that it can be used for money laundering and also
all gambling.
And that also particularly people can just use it basically as a sly bank account. Just put 10 grand in your thing into your
account, whatever.
Into your account, and then just not do anything with it.
But is there any overarching financial body that looks after it?
Yeah. I mean, there's also the Gambling Commission will look at it very heavily. That's often where people fall down on is that it's underage gambling or that they're unknowing, unwittingly, but it's like, well, it's your responsibility. It's like a bank taking, counterfeit money. It's like, well, you've got to. It's up to you to do the checks on this. Yeah,
you have to declare it though, don't you? Your taxes, but I think is it untaxed?
Gambling winnings are in the UK. They are untaxed. In America, it's quite high. I think it might be 50%.
So you can win money.
And so who wants to be a millionaire? You in America,
like National Lottery, you wouldn't get taxed on that.
I mean, if you put the money into an interest account, and then you might get charged tax on the interest.
But the initial win.
No. Yeah, you win 140 million quid on the Euro Millions. You've got 140 million pounds, gross and net.
But I worked in a casino. I worked in the bar in a casino. And I had to go on like a money laundering course.
Yeah.
Let's say course, like a day, like where they just say, hey, if you think you see anything suspicious.
Behind the bar?
Yeah. All employees had to do
it. I used to have...
What, like fake notes or what?
No, they're literally just signs for money laundering.
But why would that be
Did you have to have a personal license? Did you have to have one of those licenses?
I did not, but the croupiers
we used to
had very high, deep sort of background checks and all this stuff.
Yeah, because it's almost like being if you want to be in the Secret Service, they've got to do checks on you to make sure you're not,
but why money laundering
up to the eyeballs.
What's that got to do with you? Even if you're a croupier, why does that?
Well, it's more. It's just like, well, why does this guy turning up with a huge bag of used 50s?
Yeah, but that's more the management, isn't it? That's nothing to do.
Yeah, but the croupier would have to report it.
Yeah,
just a legal thing for anyone in the building.
You're obliged to do it.
If you were there,
because people did. I mean, we got a lot of drug dealers, pimps,
all types. We've got a load of cash. Well, it was not illegal to have a load of cash.
Well, because there was one guy who used to tell me he was a coke dealer, and he used to have about 20-30 grand in sort of 50s
rolled up.
In a bundle. Yeah. He used to have bundles of 50s.
I mean, I'll be honest. If I was a coke dealer, I'd probably not go around telling people I was a coke dealer. I'd be like,
He was all right, though.
He was all right. I'm sure
he was a nice guy.
All the people he had hacked up and turned into pate, they'd probably agree with you if they could.
I remember working nightclubs and you have to search people coming in, and on certain nights you'd have a lot of drug dealers coming in, and I used to look at them even then and go, you're an idiot. You're showing off the fact that you're a drug dealer. You've got no common sense.
Well, this is like we were talking about the casino, isn't it? When you buy Goodfellas, when those people buy all the flash cars and the coats.
Take your coke.
Yeah, exactly. It's just going.
I'm a drug dealer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower my car. I'm going to put chrome wheels on. I'm going to tint my windows, make my stereo really loud so everyone can hear me, and carry drugs in my car.
I mean. Yeah, but they're obviously morons. That's why they're drug dealers.
Yeah, but it's like, how can you not know?
Apologies to any drug dealing listeners, but
you kind of got to have a mentality of you think you're not going to get caught, and also you don't give a shit if you do.
Yeah, I think it's like eat, drink, and be merry because tomorrow we die. And in their case, it might be because you might get killed by a rival gang or
right.
We drifted way off witches. I'm not even sure how we got
laundering, gambling and stuff.
Witches, witch hunts.
Okay, witchcraft. Yeah,
witchcraft. So the woman died.
I'm still laughing about us. What are they going to take?
I mean, I've got about £4 in my wallet.
I got nothing. nothing left. Leave us a biscuit each. They'll take the selfie stick.
1956, the witchcraft got turned into what act?
Sorry, 1951. So that I beg your pardon. The lady died in 1956. So she was tried shortly before then.
And what did the Witch Act turn into?
So it basically became the Fraudulent Mediums Act. So the actual Witchcraft Act was actually from a place of saying, right, we're going to make it illegal so that this doesn't keep happening, because there was a real shift, even quite. Towards the end of the peak kind of witch trial periods, although they did continue, particularly outside of Europe, but like in Salem and all of that, and they did continue into the 18th century. But there was very even quite early on, they went, there's no point torturing people for information. They'll just tell you what they want. I mean, in England, they had much more stringent rules about what you couldn't. You had to get a warrant from the Queen to torture someone, or the King or the Queen to torture someone. But it just went, there's no point. They'll tell you everything. And often, what would happen? So, broadly speaking, if you were tortured and you didn't confess, you were let go. But often people were tortured so badly, especially as after the Pope said, all bets are off in terms of what you can do. And I went to there was an exhibition in Spain. I can't remember the castle it was, and it was about some of the torture devices and also some of the methods of execution. And you just went, whoever came up this person will be locked up just for telling you about this idea. But so there was, for example, there was one where they sat you in a chair. Again, this is more on in Spain, where it was particularly brutal.
Is this the Inquisition? Or?
Yeah. So they had a chair. They came up with this idea that they tortured you one side of your body. It made the pain more focused.
Oh, God.
So they would strap you into a chair that had nails up one side and everything. Yeah. They would crush your hands. There was a device where they put you in. It was a sort of wooden frame that went on your face, and it had a groove down the middle. And they had a real big thing about chisels, but wooden chisels. And you're like, oh God, what horrid! And they would just put the chisel in the top and hammer it down and take off your nose and tongue. Obviously, if your tongue's gone, you're not telling them anything. But you know what I mean. If people just the threat of that, they would put you in your foot in a boot, in a lead boot, and then pour in boiling tar or whatever. One way they beheaded people was to have them lying face upwards.
Yeah.
Put them in a sort of stocks. Have the chisel in the groove, this giant wooden chisel, and again just hammer that until your head came off. God. I mean, just appalling torture.
Funny, like, you think, life was just not that, or we just got used to it. That's just what the world was.
I mean, it was weird that there was a slight peak in brutality in the Middle Ages. I think
the Inquisition sort of stuff.
A lot of religious, because you had a lot of religious questioning. You also had the beginnings of science, so that was the beginning of people going, do we? Is the Earth the center of the universe?
It was a lashing out against the rise of secularism, I suppose, and the rise of sort of science.
But it's still the government, even though it's religion. It's basically power. You are questioning power.
But interesting enough, in doing a bit of research, I think that there were a lot of sort of official and authorised investigations. There were a lot of convictions and government, sort of through the state and through the normal apparatus of justice. However, the vast majority of these incidents and these murders and tortures and things were just done by mobs. And they're not often state sanctioned or whatever. It is just, that person down there is a bit funny. Let's get him. Yeah.
The thing
we don't like that her.
For all these murders and things, it was never actually a genuine case of we think this person is studying witchcraft. I mean, outside of little cases,
some of them, a lot of them were genuinely. There was a genuine belief that they were.
Like somebody died, it must have been you. Sort of.
Yeah. There was a lot of things that. So, for example, Anna Goldie, who was one of the last officially. Considered one of the last witches of Europe, but wasn't, as in terms of being tried. And so this was in, I've lost it now, 1797, I want to say. 1782, I beg your pardon. So she was accused of ostensibly...
Was that in England?
In Switzerland, this was. So the last in mainland Europe, officially, although other people, for example, there was gentleman in Ireland, I say gentleman, that's actually a terrible word, who killed his wife because he believed she was replaced by... fairies had replaced his wife with a witch who was an imposter.
Okay, so he's nuts.
Yeah, so I mean, not to make light of it. Yeah,
1897.
Yeah, this is clearly someone who's mentally ill. Yeah. For example, in 1997 in Russia, 2 farmers accused their neighbours of being folk magic and murdered them. But yeah, so one of the last.
I suppose when crops died, and they thought it must have been that old woman who sits on her own on the hill.
That was often it. There was I tried to find it because I couldn't, but I couldn't remember her name. There was a lady in England, in Sussex, because I remember we did this on a school trip where. She was accused of being a witch, and one of the things that it was very odd. It was just like, but what did she actually do wrong? But it was just at the time when it went from being predominantly about like, oh, you used witchcraft to murder somebody, or you spoiled the crops and that caused a famine and people died, that sort of thing. But one of the things was that she drank nettle soup. And they were like, you can't drink nettles. Nettles are stinging. But it's because she boiled them. Right. But they just didn't know that
nettle
took
soup,
away.
I'd forgotten about that.
Quite a lot. But that was the thing. This was at a time when people didn't know that. So because she knew that if you boiled it, it took away the sting of it. But sorry, Anna Goldie was accused of actually murdering a child through poison. But it was actually witchcraft was the real. They will think, oh, she was using witchcraft to poison the child. Because it was illegal fudge, but basically, okay. So that was in 1790.
Witches. I wonder when on the broom came in, when that got involved. Brooms,
that's probably, I would think that's...
Unless the broom was something else to start with.
I'd guess it's probably an illustration in a Victorian book or something.
Yeah, it's usually, most of these things are much later than you assume.
It was the comic book started coming out.
Yeah, someone drew a little picture on something, on a pamphlet or in a newspaper, and sort of like, and then that sort of stuck. Yeah.
I was listening to a podcast about, another podcast.
No, podcast is free speech.
Yeah, but it was about witches, just as part of this research, and the I forget the historian's name on it, but she was saying that this, in England, the kind of peak... thing about witches and it being women and everything came roughly around the time that you had
the vote.
Well, no, you had the Queen Mary, so first English Queen, and then Elizabeth. So in a very short period, in the space of, because I think Queen Mary was 1553 to 55, something like that, 58.
Sorry, it was very short then.
I think it was 53 to 58, and then obviously
Elizabeth had a longer
then
run.
you had Elizabeth immediately after from 58 to 1603. So they're saying that was the peak time of witch fervor. Although Hopkins came later, that was the time.
But that was during the Civil War, so I mean,
just people are slaughtering each other anyway.
Yeah, that was time of panic and chaos and.
So witches. So that how many died? 90,000, you reckon?
There's all sorts of different figures. So some of but that's kind of one that they sort of recently kind of.
I'm surprised Switzerland
coalesced upon.
I thought they'd be a bit more wise. The Swiss.
They're just as stupid as everyone else.
Yeah, that's the thing. You think that there's people, we go, but we mystify and sort of, go, this society, that society, ancient, this wisdom and ancient. No, everyone everywhere is just a dickhead.
Yeah.
So here's what you come to.
We're saying it was the patriarchy thing was part of it.
A big part of it. Yeah, there were men. But often it was old women, and again, there's this thing. No one knows, but there's this theory that
and children.
Yeah, it was often
it's minority groups effectively.
Yeah,
so it's disenfranchised or disempowered groups.
But it was often old women because they were saying, they represented the sort of anti. Because they couldn't give life and they would be accused of murdering and all this sort of thing. Yeah. So there was a theory of that.
But I think it definitely was a sort of early days sort of proto-terrorism act where people started to use it for things that weren't really to do with anything.
And it's very much the same sort of mental reflex as well. It's the same kind of muscle being stretched. Hence McCarthyism.
Yeah.
It's as I said earlier, it's effectively an accusation. I mean, witch hunts and witch hunting, as we deem it's a modern concept, is accusing someone without evidence.
Yeah.
And it is an unprovable claim, and you cannot disprove it. Yeah.
So I didn't commit a witch hunt against Western Union there, because I think we can prove that they have been used. Not exclusively, obviously, we must say.
I've used them quite a few times. So.
What would you use them for?
As I said, when I've been in countries now.
When he used to sell arms to.
Yeah, you can use it on the black market. I've heard, like the dark web or dark.
Yeah, I mean, I use it as a joke. I think people do. I think it's that two things that people obviously, as with anything, in fact, that people use it genuinely to send money. But then there's also it's got a reputation that makes you give pause for thought. I think we'll call charitably that if someone says, "Oh, if you need to," I certainly wouldn't use it for a large sum of money. I'd just be too nervous because
Yeah,
I
you
guess
don't know what it is really,
I'm just
yeah.
very old-fashioned.
Well, you've got a
about,
bank.
Like, yeah,
Why not?
that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
do you take checks? I think I've got a checkbook lying around somewhere. Like I'll dust off.
Check still? Can you still use checks?
I don't think you can anymore.
There's no checks anywhere now, isn't there?
Well, I don't think they're just
I
not
would like
necessary.
to see people try.
Yeah, I think imagine showing a 16-year-old in a shop like, oh yeah, can I pay for that by check? They're like, what's that?
I think they still do issue checkbooks because I think my aunt, bless her, who's
Oh come on, that's such an aunt thing though. Everyone,
Yeah, yeah,
every
yeah.
everyone's aunt.
Like
she's
80,
a, I was going to say she's a bit older, but she's a
Christmas and birthday presents. That's what checks are probably used
Yeah,
for. When
yeah,
you're
yeah.
sending money rather than putting cash in an
I
envelope.
got some for Christmas.
There you
right?
go,
So,
boom.
Yeah, but I don't. I think if you tried to pay in a shop, I think that
They wouldn't know what you were talking about.
The oik behind the counter.
The
would be
oik.
Like,
What's
go,
this? Bit of paper.
Bit of paper, mate. Money,
machine's
money.
it.
It's not
I
money,
think it's
mate.
weird.
If we try to put it in the machine, folding it up. And
Yeah,
I
well,
haven't got the Queen's head on, mate. It's not money.
I always think it's weird that in America how check is CHECK.
CHECK. Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah, it's really weird.
And we're chiku.
We're check.
Yeah.
I
It's like a
want to,
Slovakian word or something. Check.
It's probably not an English word, is
No.
it? That's
What check? I would think is probably
I think
French.
it might be
isn't it?
old
Looking at
French for
CHEQUE
pound
or
is
stuff
check.
like that. No, who knows? No.
Paper money.
We're back on it. It's my fault. I drifted us back
We're
to the
drifting.
Western Union and
To Western
checks.
Union again.
I
What
know.
is this?
I know. They're going to take all the
Obsessed,
cookies now.
man.
So we're going to close the coffin lid on.
Oh no, yeah, we're
No.
going to leave that now. Charles has got Charles. I feel Charles has got stuff on McCarthyism.
No, but any more on witchcraft? Or,
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's
Oh, you got more on witchcraft?
this. Okay, do we want to talk about modern? Bit modern
Don't forget to
stuff.
watch the film The Witch.
Oh, right, I've got
It's
it
a
on
good
my
film.
finger. Yeah,
Is that the
it's
one
really
where it's stylized Vivitch?
Oh, Witch. Yeah.
Vivitch, but it is witch. But I think the
good. It's
poster
the one
is
set in
stylized.
colonial America.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
it. Yeah. Takes a bit getting over that. You have to adjust your brain to the language.
Oh,
You have
do
to
they all
sort of
talk sort of period? That's good. That's cool though.
Yeah, no, it works, but it's too much because you start going.
Are
I
they
don't
all
know what
called?
they're saying.
Are they all called Goody something or other?
Goody wife.
Goody what?
Johnson. This.
Yeah.
No, it's a bit dark, but yeah, anyway, go on.
Cool. That's what I want from a horror film. You know? Yeah. So yes. Okay. Where are we going with this? Salem witch trials.
I'm taking a cookie. I'm going to take the opportunity.
There you go. Take the mic, Charles.
Okay. Salem witch trials were obviously the things you think of. Really, I think of Salem witch trials, the Crucible. Yeah, and the Crucible became such an important work that it effectively, in criticising McCarthyism and sort of embodying and that idea and the negative things behind witch hunts and how they and mass hysteria. It's fascinating that it had such a big cultural influence. I think that something like the Crucible, like 1984, actually has.
Crucible was a movie.
Well, it's a play.
Oh,
Yes,
but-
it's a
play.
play. But there was also a film, isn't there, with.
Daniel Day-Lewis and Winona Ryder.
That's it.
was it
Oh,
that
yeah,
late?
it's got. Yeah.
I thought it was an earlier one.
Well, the
that's
plays
probably-
from the. No, I think that's the only
Plays from the
version of the
50s.
film. I think.
There might be. There probably is another version.
Yeah, there might have been. That's probably the most.
So that's the one I've
famous
seen
Yeah,
anyway.
Was it the
Yeah.
one with like Christopher Reed? Not Reed. Who's the vampire fella?
Christopher Lee.
Christopher Lee. Didn't he do some early black and white?
Oh, I'm sure there's a Hammer
I'm sure
one.
there
Yeah,
was,
there's
yeah.
a. There's. I'm sure
It'll be
there's
If it's a Hammer version, it will have absolutely nothing to do with the actual source material.
Yeah, there was the
beyond
Kenneth Williams
vague.
played the.
Yeah, and, it'll
And the
be,
Dracula will turn up,
and they'll be
yeah.
and they
Wolfman
were,
was-
and, and they were real witches, and Peter Cushing has to kill them.
Oh, Peter Cushing. I think that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Anyway, so go on.
Anyway,
Yes.
sorry. Yes.
So the Crucible was a play that got turned into.
Yeah,
but it
I
was a-
think it's such a. I think it's as along with sort of 1984, it's one of those big, huge works of the 20th century. That's such a massive cultural impact that you think that. Yeah, as I said, it sort of absolutely solidified this concept, and it goes hand in hand with this concept. Like 1984 has lots of ideas, Big Brother and stuff. You say all these things. Ingsoc and all that. It has all these.
Am I right in thinking 1984 was written in 1948?
Yeah,
it
it
was.
just-
Yeah.
He just inverted the.
Yeah.
But McCarthyism.
Yes.
Oh, well, so witchcraft. That's what I was saying. Witch hunts, witches. We're closing that. And
Do we
now
have
going
a
on-
little on the Salem? I didn't
Okay,
do so.
little on Salem.
Where's Salem?
It's Massachusetts.
It
It's
is
near
Massachusetts.
Boston, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
sort of near Boston.
Salem, Massachusetts. Yeah.
Okay, so the Salem witch hunts.
Yeah. So why is there a thing called the Salem witch hunts? Is it specific for what reason?
Because they were one of the first big panics.
Oh, is there?
Basically.
Okay.
In 1692, they had 200 people accused, 30 found guilty, and 11 were hanged, I should say. The historian Burr said the Salem witchcraft was the rock on which the theocracy of America shattered.
Shattered, okay.
Interesting. And he said that it laid the foundations, effectively argued that it laid the foundations for a more secular state, and helped to take America. Basically, it kind of was such an awful event, such a kind of shocking event to the nation that, like, it was a wake-up call, and as I said, laid the foundations for the new nation that the revolution would create.
Well, isn't a lot of the science came from after the plague, when they realised all these spells and all these things, that because even the kings and all were using these things, that were going, oh, this is bollocks, like none of this is working, this is all frog legs and it's not solving nothing. And that helped actually push it the other way, where people said, we've got to stop doing all this fucking toad's legs and whatever they're boiling, this doesn't work. So science ended up opening the door for science a bit more. So it's the same sort of thing, really. The witchcraft went so far that it sort of brought the secularism to go, look, this is all fucking stupid.
Yeah. And this is sort of, and Salem became sort of, connected through the Crucible to McCarthyism,
Right.
and how we understand witch hunts now. And I think that McCarthyism and how we understand and the bullying on social media is with less serious consequences, except McCarthyism maybe, where people went to prison, is the same reflex. As I said, it's the same mental reflex. It's the same
same part of the human condition.
Yeah. It's the same kind of thing, and it is this thing of hysteria, of blaming, of groupthink, of mob mentality, of trying to place. Because when people get together in groups and when they have mobs, they create. I'll try not to get too into this, but they can create a mob group that is distinctive from the individual.
Yeah.
This is why football crowds behave differently. Then you get like one person, they behave like thing. You get 2 or 3 people, they behave thing. You get like 10 guys together, usually guys. Come on, lads. You see dudes walking around on a Friday, Saturday night. 1 or 2 people, they're just going about their business. Suddenly you get like 10, and all of a sudden they have a group mentality now, and they have a distinctive action, a behaviour that now
a person is smart, people are dumb.
Yes, very good. I love that quote.
Men in Black.
Men in Black.
Right.
Yeah. No, I always think of that. I always say that. So they have this, but this group mind is a very simplistic mind, and can only, because it's almost the lowest common denominator. So instead of raising it up, it lowers it down. And it looks for simple answers and simple actions to deal with complex problems. So this is why you get mob lynchings and attacks and stuff, and all these awful things. And football hooliganism is such a good example of this. People suddenly go, "Hang on, he's wearing a different shirt than me. Get him!"
Yeah, I always find that very bizarre.
I wonder if it's a numbers thing. There's got to be a numbers thing. Eventually, it reaches a group. It becomes a group, and then it's like the internet. At a certain point of people, you're then able to hide in that. Do you know what I mean? If there's 3 of you, you can't really hide. You're an important part of that group. If there's 10, you can now sort of retreat into the group. Becomes big enough that you're.
I mean, it also spreads out the blame, doesn't it? It wasn't I.
Yeah, that's what I mean. At a certain point, you dissolve into the group rather than being a set of individuals, and that's when the real poison comes out. Like the internet, the second you can hide who you are, then all the poison flows out. So if you've got 3 people, it's not a group. 4, 6, 7, 8 starts now. Now it's us, not me.
20,000, and all of a sudden you're. But you do lose. You can, the bigger the group. When you say football crowds are a very good example of this. So you have a big crowd, big terrace, 20,000 people in the stadium. They all know. They all start singing, and they all know when to sing, and they all sing the same thing, and they all sing in the same pitch as well, which is important. And there's lots of studies into this, and people say, oh, well, there's kind of inciting incidents when people that incite certain learnt behavioural responses. But there is still that X mind. There is sort of a group mind that happens when people join, a collective mind, and you do lose your individual sort of will and thing, and you do get swept up in the group and the mob. And that is... it's a very, very strange thing because it's. I suppose it's like almost like a human network or something. You know what I mean?
Just trying to think of it if it's almost back to hunting, where at a certain point you have to act as a group. There's a certain amount of people that you're hunting as together. A group. You're not you. You're doing that over there, and now we're spaced like we're a group basically,
like a team.
Yeah. So and I'm now thinking as a team. So I think there'll be a number. I think there'll be roughly a number that comes up where you then go, oh, now we're a group, and we're thinking as a group. But I bet that's down to hunting.
Probably, yeah.
Chasing something.
Witches, chasing witches.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, McCarthyism, McCarthyism was a shit show, basically. And one of the low points of Western democracy.
So what year was McCarthy? 50s? It was after World War II.
Yes, it was what they call the Second Red Scare.
So what was the first Red Scare?
The first Red Scare was after the First World War.
Oh, okay.
After the revolution during the Russian Civil War, and when they had a bunch. This was in America, the first and second Red Scares. They had a bunch of strikes. I mean, they had a big strike in Seattle, and I think another strike in Boston and stuff, and New York, and there was a string of anarchist terrorist attacks as well. During the war and before, but the early part of the 20th century, they had this in London a lot as well, and Ireland. So the anarchist terrorist groups were a big thing, you know. So there was a lot of scare that there was going to be a communist revolution in America, basically. And so, right after the Second World War, the Russians were literally in Berlin. Half of Europe was under their occupation. So again, the Americans started panicking. It's an intro. What at the core of it basically is how much are you willing to give up of the thing that you like to protect it? Because they were they effectively were saying, okay, we are freedom and democracy and liberty and fraternity and all the good stuff.
As long as you're not too free or want too much.
However, we need to strip all these things away to protect them because someone somewhere might have different ideas than us. And this is the problem that we've had, with the war on terror as well. I mean, is that how far are we willing to give up the things, our freedoms, to protect our freedoms? And it's a contradictory kind of statement.
Well, it's already started, hasn't it, with all this privacy stuff. Now it's like people are like, privacy, we don't really need it. What's that thing you're talking about? Yeah. But then... Again, it's not the thing, it's where does it end? Okay, let's go for let the mobile thing go and cameras and all. Yeah. Don't worry about bunging cameras up on every street corner. Yeah, it doesn't matter. But when does it end? Because otherwise, just put cameras everywhere. So that's where, if I did that, well, I don't want that. Well, fucking make your mind up then. Your freedom is, you have to go, things are going to happen. You find a way to make sure they don't happen and we stay free. That's your thing. But, because it really does annoy me. It really F's me off. Like people just sort of marching to. Oh, do you know what? I was listening to there's a podcast the other day, science podcast.
Yeah.
For some reason, they got into the subject, and the scientists had been to China. And
dodgy.
Yeah. Well, he said he was. So it wasn't him, his friend, but he said the guy told him afterwards scientist was crossing the road. They're from Australia, but they're in China. Crossing the road where it was a red light, you weren't allowed to cross. He said by the time he crossed the road, the guy's phone beeped and he's been sent a text saying you have been fined.
Oh, really?
And because it's facial recognition everywhere.
Like Demolition Man.
Yeah, I was going to say, John Spartan, you are fined.
And this has already happened.
Violation of the verbal morality code.
So, because he said that they're using the facial recognition everywhere.
Yeah.
And he had to give his details because he was a scientist in the country. He said he walked across the road before he got to the end of the road, it pinged and he'd been fined for crossing because they'd had his face. Oh, yeah. And you go, so that's now. So let's just go forward where it goes. We're being fined. You can't go here. You can't go there. Well, if you want to go into that road, you can't go there. You've got to pay to go in that road. All facial recognition. That's where we're going now. Yeah. But then, where does it go? Well, you were walking too fast, or your clothes were too colourful.
Chucked a fag butt down on the ground.
Yeah, I mean that's the easy stuff. But it will
that's you, Charles. Though.
But it doesn't stop. It will be. Well, you walked you were wearing colourful clothes. Why were your clothes so colourful? Why was you? It will start with baseball caps. Why are you covering your face? Why are you doing that? No sunglasses. No, there. Oh, your clothes are a bit colourful. It's a bit characteristic. We don't want two personalities.
As the technology gets cheaper and
facial recognition is going to be everywhere,
Yeah.
and you will be able to be fined everywhere you're going. And eventually, there will be a law that gets passed because something will happen, and they say, right, we can't have any of this anymore. People just wandering around, not knowing where everybody is. So from now on, everyone's got to be registered. When you walk from there, when you go in the shop, it pings. When you go in the car, it pings. And now when everyone's nice and safe. But it's not that. It's not that.
Well, look at the massive U-turn in public opinion on ID cards in this country.
Yeah.
They floated that idea, when was it, 20 years ago?
It was on the Blair. It was one of the big things.
And ID cards, and everyone said, absolutely not. Even Cameron was like, I think Cameron, they discussed it and said, that was 10 years ago. He said, absolutely not. This isn't, I will not, I'm an Englishman, I will not have to carry papers around, show them, fuck off. Who the fuck are you, asking me to show ID? Fuck off. And then public opinion's completely changed now, and everyone's like clamoring, we need ID cards. Well, this is insane. Why have we not got them? Everyone else has them.
Just need a verified blue tick on your Instagram profile. That's what you need. Yeah,
it's mad. It's like, this is why I get so annoyed with humanity. I think, bollocks, let it burn. We don't deserve that.
Let it burn.
Because if we don't, if we're that stupid, you can't do this, so they can't. I mean, the cars, you can't go here, you can't drive that way, you get a ticket if you stop there. Then it goes into your car, well, they give you a discount on your insurance now if you put a black box in there.
I feel like you're swinging back to Thanos now again.
Did I ever leave him?
Well, no, you were leaning slightly more to Bane last time.
Well, I don't really understand the difference between them two. Is one worse than the other?
Well, Thanos...
Don't kill everyone. That's stupid. I don't agree with that.
Thanos' thing was that he killed indiscriminately, whereas Bane killed extrajudicially.
What does that mean?
As in not without a real fair trial. They didn't have any legal representation. It was just, you've been found guilty... so you can either choose death or exile.
Well, I'm offended that you keep using bald blokes. So I'm going to say, what, are you saying we're all evil? I bet if I went back through the film, I bet there's a load more bald, evil people.
This is where it really comes from. Yeah.
This is where... What about comic book? Is there any comic book
Blofeld was bald, wasn't he?
I don't know who he is.
The bad guy in James Bond.
The guy with the scar and the cat, yeah.
Dr. Evil was bald.
No, Mr.
There's a theme there. There's definitely something going on.
I've noticed in the trailer for the new James Bond film, the guy's got like bad skin. He's got like I don't know what the thing is meant to be. No, he's got
scar.
It's almost like scales. It looks like it's hard because they've hardly shown him in the trailer. But yeah, the bad guy. Yeah, he's got some. It's Rami Malek, but they've given him. You're Freddie Mercury, man.
Oh, him.
Yeah. Mr. Robot.
Yeah, he's.
He doesn't carry any evil in him, does he? Look at him.
He looks quite sinister, I would say.
What, the little gay fella?
He's a bit shifty looking, isn't he? Like,
what? He's the opposite.
Looking.
Well, he's a bit funny looking. He's not.
Yeah, I mean, some people have said
he's
he's quite vampiric looking.
He's an unusual looking guy.
Yeah, he's very.
Yeah. But why choose him out of all the people in the world you could go to?
Because he just won an Oscar. Why wouldn't you pick him?
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he said that he would do it as long as it wasn't a racial, because I think I believe he's Egyptian or half Egyptian. His background is So he said, I don't want to be the exotic villain guy. I'll be whatever. But now it's like skin deformity guy instead. He's got some weird,
grotesque.
It's always the grotesque. Well, you think Lashif had an eye condition, so his eye bled.
Oh, really?
Didn't he? He had they quite often use
so going into the movie thing of if you're ugly, you're evil.
Yeah, so you had a eye patch was I've forgotten his name now.
I'm just waiting for
no, Dr. No had no hands.
Yeah,
so he was missing hands. It was Emilio Largo in Thunderball who had an eye patch.
Wheelchair is a baddie.
That was Blofeld. Blofeld after he was paralysed by Bond. But it was really went from being teeny tiny Donald Pleasance to Butch Telly Savalas between two. But someone was writing, they were like, because they have a big fist fight, and they were like, you can't have fucking Sean Connery punching Donald Pleasance.
He's going to batter him.
It's just bam, the fight's over. I think it was
up,
Charles Gray in between, but I don't think they had much in the way of physical confrontation there. But again, he's a little bit better built before teeny tiny, from good old the Halloween films and things like that.
I know, yeah, because here's where he looks like he's going to bruise like a peach.
You know what I mean? Like, can you imagine? Actually, I think by the time it was Telly Savalas, that was George Lazenby. But again, someone who's well built and everything. just a slap Blofeld
But
to the ground.
the baddie
in
Enter the Dragon, he had a missing hand.
yes, he did. I've forgotten his name now.
So there is a
He's
big
doctor. Isn't he a doctor as well? There's that joke in The Big Bang Theory about how many villains always have doctorates and are always professors.
Because I suppose that is the thing, isn't it? Yeah, because they're sort of like academics.
Yeah,
and
clever
intellectuals
and
are part of the
ugly.
elite.
Yeah, clever and ugly.
So the deformities make you evil. That's what
Yeah,
Hollywood's saying.
I mean, often
to us.
with when it's films, coming of age stuff and whatever, the villain is usually a fat kid.
Yeah.
Huh?
So that's always the thing. So again, that comes to witch hunting. It's just the other. It's the.
What does it say? Wasn't the fella? Who's the fat kid in Goonies that did the truffle shuffle?
Yeah.
Wasn't he the guy in Lord of the Rings?
No, but Sam is in it. Sam is in it.
Yeah,
he's the brother.
Oh yeah.
So you've got Josh Brolin, who played Thanos, is the elder brother. I've forgotten his name now. Andy? No, Andy's the girl, isn't it? Andy, you Goonie. But yeah, Sean Austin is in it, but he's like
In what?
In Goonies, and he's also Sam in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, so he's in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, but it's not the truffle shuffle kid. It's not Chunk.
Oh, it's another kid. That's
It's weird.
Right.
I can see what you think there because obviously Sam.
Yeah, he looks. He's got the sort of hair and the.
I mean, that film is so fucking un-PC. I love it, but you watch it back and
I saw it for Christmas. Now
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit, they're like going to kill these kids.
Right.
Yeah, it's a good
I'm
film,
like,
but it is
oh.
just a bit like. I mean, it's one of those films that you're like, this is actually shit, but I love it
Yeah.
because it's a bit like Hook. You watch Hook and you're like, this is demonstrably a piece of crap,
But I know what it is.
really like it.
There's nothing unusual that's going to happen here.
Yeah, exactly. I
Right,
think
let's get back onto witch.
Yes.
Witch
Yeah,
hunts. So at the
Okay.
where were we?
McCarthyism.
Oh yeah. Could you just explain what it is? Just
Yeah,
so
I think
because people have heard of it.
McCarthyism. Okay, McCarthyism
So
was
Joseph McCarthy
was a an anti-communist movement in the
after World War II. Yeah.
in the late 40s and until about the late 50s.
To do with the fear of communism getting into America.
Communist infiltration.
And
yeah.
they were looking through media and all outlets to find people that were sympathisers
and promoting communism as well. It was fueled by the belief that there were lots of spies and agents working to undermine American culture and values and stuff, and that found its outlet by targeting a lot of people in Hollywood.
China are getting it makes sense when somebody explains it to you. They're basically undermining America through over the last 20 years funding movies. This Asian thing, it was an actual proactive thing to say, look, we can't get into America like politically and all that and through war, so we have to do it surreptitiously through films. So they have started being a major funder for a lot of films, and they're changing things in films but in Asian, saying, look, you can have the money, but you've got to put an Asian
they have different
character
versions.
in there.
Yeah, so Iron Man 3, for example, there's a whole character in about a 20-minute sequence set in China that you don't see in the West.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So
They're even changing sort of like the types of phones they're using, making them more it's part of the films. They're saying, right, you have to put the Asian thing you've started to notice now, but that was actually proactive. We can't get into politically, so let's pay for you.
It's also the big market as well.
For
the blockbusters.
Yeah.
It's now that, as well as looking at America and the foreign gross in terms of the rest of the world, but they also look at it's say if a blockbuster's doing okay, it's not doing great. Fingers crossed, China. Whereas in the past, China didn't used to allow that many foreign releases, if any. They've now upped the minimum.
A lot more cinemas open as well,
that was things. So, I mean, that was the reason we got a Pacific Rim 2, because it did.
Yeah.
First one did okay everywhere else, but not enough to justify it. And then it did mega bucks in China.
Yeah, if you think about the films now, you see where it's suddenly an Asian culture in films, you go, oh, that's...
Or it's set in China,
and it starts with a character, and then they start to build the stories, and then it's just China.
I mean, Mulan's going to be the big... Mulan, the live-action remake this year is going to be the big toe in the water. Well, the whole up to the knee in the water for Disney, basically.
Yeah, because it's a Disney Chinese film.
Effectively.
Oh, right.
Okay. They do speak English, don't they?
It is English language, but it has it's all sort of Chinese actors, Asian actors, and it's going to be their big push, I think.
And if you're trying to manipulate a country that you can't do with war, it works, because the movie industry, it's a greedy industry. It wants cash in. It doesn't give a shit where the cash comes from. So, we'll give us some money and we'll start changing the stories a little bit.
Yeah. Who was it? who was the little Nazi lad who did all the propaganda? Goering.
Oh right,
It was
Goebbels. Who, what you just said there, like, so, who's that little Nazi little
Nazi
scamp?
chap, yeah. Goebbels always said that he favoured propaganda in which the ideology was in the background. He said that the best propaganda films were the ones that presupposed the Nazi values. Of course, the Nazi values and the Aryan values, they were just accepted by everyone, and they were normal. You know what I mean? They didn't have to sit and have discussions about how these things are right. Everyone just assumed that they were, and this was normal, you know? And same thing with a lot of cultural hegemony propaganda and stuff. The CIA did do a writers' initiative in the 50s and 60s. This was post, again, I think it's part of the Red Scare kind of thing, to fund, they funded a lot of university courses and a lot of writing groups and writing courses across America in order to encourage new writers to create new works to promote American values, traditional American values. You know, so America has done that, the CIA has done that, and that's not a conspiracy theory. That they were quite open about that.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about this sort of stuff and stuff going on, but you go, but American, we've probably been doing it to other countries for years, that we just don't hear it backwards, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, think how The Simpsons is pretty much in every country in the world.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like just
American values.
Soft, it's soft sort of propaganda.
As is the English language.
Yeah. Like it's American films are everywhere. I mean, Marvel films are everywhere. You know what I mean? They're like pretty much every country in the world. Like
everywhere's got McDonald's on every corner.
Yeah.
Somebody said, if you speak English, you're never really foreign anywhere. Like there's always a knowing of what you are.
No, everyone else is wrong.
Yes.
You can never be. You can
you
never
might have
be foreign.
to speak a bit loudly and use a few more hand gestures. But
But
basically,
it is weird. You go to somewhere and they don't speak even a little bit of it, like because you always think, they'll speak enough to get by, and then you're like, literally, no. It's really odd when you do go somewhere. And speak. I mean, my sister-in-law's father, they're French, and he speaks. So my sister-in-law's sister, I have no idea how these people are related to me, but my sister-in-law's sister is, she speaks teeny tiny bit of English. We can we can have conversations and stuff because she understands a smattering of English. We understand a smattering of French, vice versa. But my sister-in-law's father speaks not a single solitary word of English, and he also speaks in a really thick, rustic kind of French accent.
How does he manage to keep it at bay?
Because
that's the thing. The French don't speak properly,
but also they're French.
I mean, the French don't speak French like how you want them to speak French.
Yeah, they don't speak.
Especially with films, and
they live in a tiny little village on the outskirts in the middle of France. They don't have any need to. Yeah, it's not a tourist town. They don't have any need to. But it's really funny because he just gibbers at you in French, and you're like, I don't know what you're saying. Like, I don't speak French that well.
Why are you saying it like...
Yeah, and he just talks and laughing and smiling, and you're like, I really hope he's not saying anything like really appalling. Yeah. Just like, maybe
telling you to get out.
Yeah, exactly. Chuckling and be like, I really hate you so much. And you're like, yes.
So anyway, Joseph McCarthy went on a witch hunt of trying to... There was a massive court case.
Yeah, because he headed up the committee, didn't he, essentially? He was, hence he became synonymous.
There was the Senate committee, but actually the House committee on... the House Un-American Activities Committee, he didn't sit on.
Oh, did he not?
No, he did, because he was a senator, and that was from the House.
He was a judge, was
That's from the House Representatives.
He was well known for taking a check. I think Pepsi paid him £20,000 once, but I can't remember what for.
To drink a Pepsi?
I can't remember what for, but he was synonymous for taking checks from people.
Was he really? So like in the middle of a trial, he was like, you know what's really American? A cool glass of fizzy Pepsi.
It was Pepsi. He did take $20,000 from Pepsi. I can't think what for.
However, yes, a young congressman named Richard Nixon did sit on the panels.
Oh, right.
Yeah, these evil fucks. They just rotate.
Started stewing slowly.
He had his finger in the evil pie for quite a while.
The evil pie.
like George Bush Senior as well. I mean, he was head of the CIA and vice president stuff. And, he was doing evil shit for a decade before he became.
I remember there was a lot of who was? I can't remember his name. Right, who played Harvey Milk?
Sean Penn.
Sean Penn,
Yeah, so I think he gave up acting for a while, didn't he? Because his dad was one of the people that were blacklisted as an actor.
I don't know.
Yeah, he gave up for like 6 years before he decided to come back to
Well,
it.
the blacklisting sort of stopped by 1960. Really.
Hang on, say the blacklist. I don't even know how that worked. So they were interviewing or putting on trial various people within any industry. Political, acting,
I think it could
more
be.
heavy
I
with
think it was often considered, anyone who had a position of
power,
influence or power. So if you worked as a journalist,
and they were
if you
accused,
worked as a teacher, that sort of thing.
Well, they started creating lists. I think in 1947 they had the first kind of hearing as we would see it.
Oh, didn't you have the here in my hand? I have the 200.
Yeah. He came up with the 300 names
Yeah.
Initially. They had the Hollywood 10, who were the first to be sort of blacklisted. And that was the first sort of
like writers and directors and things.
They were mostly writers. I did have a look. I mean, I had a look.
I think John Wayne was well known for just throwing people under the bus. No, anyway, he didn't have to be sort of cornered. He was like, "Oh,
that sounds about right."
Here's a load of people that I think
sounds about right. I would think for John Wayne.
But it's guys. It's lots of screen. Mostly writers. A few journalists, a few poets, a few actors. A few sort of comedians.
Yeah, I suppose it's mostly writers, because they're dictating the content.
Yeah, because they're the most important people.
And so was there an actual
spoken like a true writer, Charles?
Yeah,
was there actual? They were black. They weren't allowed to work.
Yes,
or were they just sort of morally they were blacklisted?
This is the thing: is the film, the industry, the Motion Picture Association of America. Okay, which is the professional body at the time, so that the union effectively came out and said that we will never knowingly hire a communist, and if anyone is if anyone is known to be a communist or communist sympathizer, they will be cast out from the industry, and they will not fight. So that was the official line from the industry. So the industry the industry weren't supportive. The industry gave big fucking middle fingers to them and said, "Now fuck off." Although there were a few things I will talk about later. So the industry were creating blacklists effectively, and then there were several American publications that, like Red Channel, was a big pamphlet at the time that was publishing names of people basically that they suspected.
Oh, so Red Channel, because it sounds like that would be something pro-communist, but that was actually outing communists
as a far right thing. I also think there's a YouTube channel that got banned recently for being far right.
So what was Red Channel?
Red Channel was a pamphlet from a right-wing journal that was publishing.
So it was being ironic with the red thing, or was that just random? They said red.
I think it was just because they were anti-red, or targeting the Reds.
Yes, it was red. Okay.
Yeah. But there was sort of a bunch of things. They started to also have private companies investigate people for their loyalty. And this is the route. This was the start of, because blacklisting got more and more. There started to be hundreds and hundreds of people. There were arrests and charges as well. A lot of people, most of the charges and stuff were for, particularly the Hollywood 10, which is the big case, the sort of instigating case of it all. They were done for hindering the investigation and pleading the fifth.
Oh.
Because those you've probably seen the footage. Have you ever been a member of the Communist Party? And they said, a lot of them were said, I plead the Fifth Amendment. My constitutional right to not incriminate myself. Yeah. And they said, you cannot do that, sir. That is completely. You hiding behind this, and so a lot of them were charged.
You're hiding behind one of the most important, things that I think
the Constitution
because it's not helping us this time. Yeah.
Have you got any people there that were blacklisted? Wasn't Charlie Chaplin blacklisted?
Charlie Chaplin was. Orson Welles was not blacklisted, but sort of budged out. Also, Trumbo, the writer, they did a film about him with Bryan Cranston a couple of years ago that was up for Best Picture.
Yeah, because Chaplin basically went into self-imposed exile, didn't he?
There's a couple of people just kind of got if you weren't there was the list of names, and then there were people who were sort of squeezed out.
On a side tangent with Charlie Chaplin, I remember watching a documentary about him, and he said the guy that introduced Charlie Chaplin to the film companies, they didn't know, he wanted them to meet Charlie Chaplin, and see how funny he was. But he didn't want to tell them about him. So what he did is they had a big dinner for all the directors to come round, and had Charlie Chaplin as the waiter. Basically doing all the things you would think he was dropping stuff, tripping over
shoelaces, yeah.
And he said in the end they started laughing at this fucking incompetent fucking waiter that they had in the house, and then they said after he's the actor, and that's how they hired him.
It's quite clever.
Well, that's kind of fun, yeah.
Can you imagine him there, fucking dropping things and tripping over himself?
I was like
the
there was a thing, whether it's true or not, but I think it was Jean-Claude Van Damme as a struggling actor, as a wanting to just get into films full stop. I'm not even sure he'd done any, and he'd seen. I think he saw. It was either Joel Silver. I think it might have been Joel Silver, one of those kind of old timey '80s moguls, just out in the street, and just like ran up to him and just did a really theatrical, acrobatic roundhouse kick. And they were like, "Oh, that's going to give you the kick that got him kickboxing." But I always think in an alternate reality, he timed that wrong and just kicked Joel Silver right in the fucking face.
It was Menachem Golan or something, wasn't it? I think he was in the Canon studio.
Yeah, it was somebody. It might not. I don't think it was Joel, but it was somebody. Yeah, he just did.
Because it was kickboxing. I think it was Menachem Golan. He's literally sat in the Canon office every day for like 2 weeks. Just wanting, he's like, oh, if the guy's free, I can see him.
Right.
And then one time he just left his office and he was there, and he just jumped up and did this kick like an inch away from his face, and he's like, I love this guy, we'll hire him.
Yeah, but I just love the idea that in an alternate reality, you got it wrong.
He just
fucking
arrested, put into jail.
Yeah, but that's going to be an Arrested Development ending.
Yeah, so the blacklisteds ensued.
Yes, the blacklisting ensued. The committees ran rampant. Hundreds were called before it. The Smith Act, which was another piece of legislation that that targeted people who were trying to undermine or subvert American values.
Again, just arbitrary words.
Anything vague enough to.
It's really weird because you just think, how is any of this legal? Especially with the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. I mean,
they just make it legal, don't they? It's not.
Well, it turns out it wasn't legal.
Oh no! I'm saying clearly this is illegal, but the point is they just go, "Oh, this is
the Trump thing again." Like laws are in place, but let's just go to the morals and fears of people instead.
Well, they have to be tested in the court, and this is why you need a good Supreme Court. And ultimately, the reason why this whole thing fell apart is the public appetite. The public support for it fell apart. It was around 50% in a lot of polls supporting McCarthy. That fell to about 30% support by the mid-50s, and also people against it wrote. But the antagonism towards it went from something like sort of 30% to 60%.
Because you watch even just a little bit, and you can understand why people were scared, especially when you're told that communism is bad, it's going to destroy your way of it, it's going to make slaves of us all, it's it's going to like look at what's happening in Russia with Stalin and everything like that, and it's just a dictatorship.
But the way it went rampant.
Yeah, they were true. I mean, that's the thing is, past after the collapse of the Soviet Union, they released a lot of documents, a lot of information. There were a lot of spies.
Oh yeah.
The American Communist Party was in communication with the Soviet government and was trying to undermine American society.
That's what I mean. Is you can see it, but then you watch those trials and you just go, "This is just putrid and vile."
Yeah,
and this
that's
is,
what I mean. They just went too far, and people started to see
you just
this
go, it's the "have you no decency" at last. That's the.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is that how much are you willing to give up? Because there is a threat. It's like with terrorism. I mean, there is a threat. There are people out there who are willing to do awful, dreadful things. But how much are you willing to give up to stop them?
Yeah, I mean, if we start just going around murdering everyone, and taking out fingernails and all that, then they won, because that's what they have in their, in the caliphate. It was so funny. It's not funny, sorry, but when ISIS, they were saying, oh, when a lot of them got captured, they said, oh, we're being tried unfairly. It's like, well, what about the people who you just beheaded? Where was did they have a lawyer? Did they have legal representation? I think at its peak, I believe this was in Iraq. I think it got to the point, obviously, when averages come into account, it's always get skewed, but it was something like that most people had less than 20 minutes to defend themselves before they were taken out and shot if they were members of ISIS, because they captured so many, and B, they were so fucked off.
Yeah.
They just went, basically it was, are you a member of ISIS? Yes. Right, guilty, sentence.
Where do you fall down on then in the safety privacy thing?
It's always, I think it's always checks and balances, isn't it? It's always, you've got to, most law is built on precedent, and so you say, well, what is it? I mean, we've looked at, for example, they're trying to, where terrorists they're trying to rush through legislation now, because the last few terrorist incidents in this country have predominantly involved people who were released early.
people who've been charged with terrorist offences and then been released and then gone on to commit
almost
more terrorist offences.
almost immediately.
You've got the American thing where most of the terrorist acts are people from the white nationalists. Sort
Yeah,
of thing.
yeah. I
So
mean,
it's like,
I don't know what the statistics are now, but for
Look at that thing in Germany the other week. I mean, that guy shot up
this?
that
a
guy.
mosque. Was it a mosque?
No, it's some shisha bars, wasn't it?
Oh, that was it. I beg your pardon. Yes, no, because there was somebody in this country recently who went into a mosque and stabbed the.
Oh, yeah.
I believe it was the imam, or it was certainly one of a senior member of the.
He went for the imam. Apparently, there's sort of the cleric, jumped up and defended
The equivalent of the
Yeah.
verger, isn't it?
Yeah,
I don't know what the term is, I'm afraid, but yeah. So I don't know if that was classed as an act of terror. I think that was just basically a good old fashioned racism. I believe.
Well, that is. I mean,
which is basically what
which is a terrorist act.
Yeah,
surely, because if you are targeting someone.
I did think that when I read it, I was like, that looks like definitely a white guy in a hoodie being pinned down there.
Yeah. And they said that he was. Well, they didn't talk about his internet activity, but I would wonder what his browser history looks like.
Yeah, whether he's got any
kind
of swastikas.
What's the line when something
Daily
becomes
Storm
terrorism?
I suppose
that's
it's
just
a lot
racist attack.
but I think it's a lot to do with the ideology as well, and whether you.
But it just comes back to what is terrorism.
I think if you're doing something like that to create, if you're acting in a violent or disruptive way with to further a political agenda.
Yeah, I suppose.
Political.
There has to be some kind of politics or ideology.
But if you're not connected to anything, you're just a lone nutter. Then that's a racist attack. That's all.
I think.
If you're doing it on behalf of something,
but he's doing. He's probably. I mean, some people will do a lone wolf attack on behalf of the white race. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They say, I'm defending my nation. I'm defending Christianity. I'm defending the white race.
Yeah, I guess I suppose if you went, if you just beat up a random, if you're a white person and you don't like black people for whatever reason, you have no particular political reason behind it other than just you're a moron and you're a racist, and you beat up a black person in the street versus you're like, right, we need to do this X, Y, Z, we need to, I don't know.
There's no movement behind it.
Yeah, when there's a kind of ideology behind it beyond just simple, because hatred, because, if I punch someone in the street, it's not a political act. And even if it's just like, fucking hate tall people, that's not a terrorist act, unless I'm part of like, I can't even think what I think.
Once that word's been created now, terrorism.
It's quite a catch-all. It can be, but I think it's one of those things where you look at it and you go, I can say that is terrorist and that is not, without necessarily being able to define it.
Snowden and all that? Are they classed as terrorists?
I don't know. No, I think they're classed as traitors, aren't they? Snowden.
Anybody like we used to
Snowden and Assange and all those. I don't think they're classed as terrorists. I think more so.
I think terrorism is
an act, a violent act.
It seems to be linked with
because it's
an act of terrorism.
You think of the word terror,
so
it's often to do, it's often violence as well, rather than, because if you set up a political party and just said we need to smash the system and blah blah blah, but you're not calling for violence. Whereas I think if you had a terrorist group who are like, right, so part of our smashing of the system is to blow up train stations and cause disruption.
Extinction
Rebellion. Yeah, I was like, is that really terrorist? You look at that and you go,
they've been classed as a terrorist organisation.
But they're doing physical acts, aren't they?
They're doing
civil
disobedience, peaceful protests.
I kind of, that's one of those ones again. You could probably very, very loosely define that, but I'm like, it's one of those things you look at, like I say, I think it's easier to go, that is terrorism, that is not.
I mean, is PETA a terrorist organisation?
Yeah.
PETA send letter bombs. PETA send razor blades in the...
I don't know, they send letter bombs.
They do. I know someone who worked in some kind of... They were creating vaccines for chickens, but then...
Vaccines for chickens?
Yeah, chicken vaccines. But then it required... them extracting them from chickens and then breeding the vaccines from chickens, blah, blah, blah. So they had a big warehouse where they were breeding chickens kind of thing. And then after they sort of got them ill and then they got the antibodies and then they bred the cures and stuff. But they did have to, although the animals were fine afterwards, they did have to destroy them because they couldn't go back into the food supply. Even though they were fine,
they can't just go live on a farm somewhere.
No, well they couldn't because that was law. That was the law.
Okay.
The law. So, this person I know, they worked as in the reception bit, and they literally had to have a security thing. They had to check under the cars every day when they left.
Yeah, I can imagine.
They had an X-ray machine. Every package that went in, every letter had an X-ray machine and stuff, and they had an anthrax thing as well, because they had an anthrax attack or something, or they had threats of an anthrax. They had powder sent in.
I suppose that probably leads, to my mind, leads more into a terrorist.
That's what I'm saying. Something like that is.
Yeah, I don't worry about Extinction Rebellion blowing stuff up or murdering people. You know,
I started having sympathy for that lot when I saw 28 Days Later and they let out the chimp. The rage. They have no idea what you're doing.
You know that's a film, right?
Yeah, but I think there's bits to that.
I know you don't like going in central London, but it's not abandoned for zombies.
The bus on its side.
It depends what time.
Actually, I've been doing office.
But you wouldn't want to run into somewhere where they've all got disease and things. Start going, right, let them out. You go, that's mental. That doesn't make. Why would you do that? I was only found out that recently when talking about the coronavirus, when they're saying how it takes like a year to get the antidote to things, because they do put it through chickens and through the eggs, and then they manipulate the chicken, and they get the antidote through the eggs, and then they keep doing it again and again and again and again until that egg has the antidote for the thing. It's to do. They have to do it en masse though to find the ones that are a bit more what's called when you got against the disease. When you can't get the disease.
Resistant.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
And they just do it again and again and again and again. Eventually there'll be an egg that's resistant to that thing, and then they sample that out and then spread it. But they said about 10,000 chickens they have to use to do that.
Fucking hell.
Recently, some, I don't know if there were baboons escaped from in Australia because they were transporting them to test on them.
Oh.
And then people were kicking off saying, do we still test on that?
Yeah,
I thought we didn't test on primates.
Yeah, that's what they were saying.
I'm not saying it's fine to just test, but
these ones escaped in transport, and then people were like, are we still testing on fucking primates? Baboons, I think it was, just recently.
Baboons, Jesus Christ.
Poor baboons.
Yeah.
Haven't we got poor people who can do that on?
Nice. Fucking hell.
The homeless? I don't know.
Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, volunteer.
Yeah, volunteer, please, Charles.
I don't need to, but I mean, that's what I pay taxes, is for these people to round it up and be tested on, surely.
I remember looking up years ago when I was really desperate.
I'm not sure he's joking.
I think he means how much do these test things actually pay you? I did look into it.
They can be a couple of grand, yeah.
Yeah, but it goes down to like a tenner if you just do this for
it depends on what the one is, yeah. I think there's...
But then that guy died and his fucking head blew up like
people do, and people like their fingers drop off or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's always the...
And they don't like using women because of the reproductive things. It's just an added thing that could go wrong in the future. They don't want to get sued. So when they do tests, they say, like, we don't really want women.
Bollocks drop off, you're not...
Yeah, but if you start, can't have kids anymore. Now that's a big check we've got to write.
All the kids born problems.
It's got superpowers.
It's got superpowers, yeah.
You never know.
That's how it works.
You never know.
We've got to try.
Mr. Sinister starts messing around with the DNA, and then all of a sudden we have
I seen something recently, just a dyslexia thing popped up, and I thought, let me watch this bollocks, because I can't stand having a thing wrong with you. And I was watching it, and they were just listing, this woman was listing off all the dyslexics, where, what was she doing? She had, she opened up a shop, like, she just put up a shop, and it had, like, a sperm bank, but it's only dyslexics. And people were outside in the street going, and it was like a knock-up shop.
Without being unkind, how would a dyslexic know that?
What do you mean? No. It's if you want to have a dyslexic child.
What? Again, okay, fine. Okay, sorry. Because I'm initially meant something like, dyslexics, please, signs saying
no, you don't give
come in here.
It's a sperm bank, so you're giving it out.
Dyslexics come in here.
Yeah.
But look at that. That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, Charles Kirby.
But people were going, so the guy outside the shop, before they get him in, was going, so would you like to have a dyslexic child? And they go, well, no.
No, yeah.
No, but then they were taking them into the shop and going, okay, well, these are all the people that are dyslexic. And it's like half the inventors in the world. They're going, well, here's Steve Jobs, and here's Einstein, here's all the Hollywood stars. And they're going, what, he's dyslexic? Yeah, he was dyslexic.
Yeah, but my point, and
they were going,
the two don't go hand in hand, I don't think.
But the idea was they were going, well, why would I want? They go, well, and they had all the pictures of all the people, and they go, well, here's the fucking Einstein, and here's what's the guy, the electricity?
Newton?
No.
Tesla,
blah, blah. And they go through all these Hollywood stars. He's dyslexic.
I don't know why I said Newton,
Steven Spielberg, he's dyslexic.
General science.
And they go through all these. And they go,
I did a degree in media, Charles. Don't pick on me.
They were going, so what's your opinion of dyslexia now? And you're going, well, I don't want a kid with dyslexia, but it doesn't. All these people are dyslexic. Yeah, it's like. So that's technically a superpower, really. I was watching. So
Shall I just say yes? Shall
No,
we
but
I was
just
thinking
agree?
autism is a superpower, yeah.
No,
Oh,
but
well, in films, it
strangely
always
enough,
is, isn't it? They
it
would
was
make
only
autism
because
a
I was glad I
superpower.
watched it because when I was watching it, and I had another guy who studied it, and he said I was dyslexic, and there was all these people talking about dyslexia. They didn't know what they were talking about. They're saying you can fix it and all this. And he was saying, oh, he looked into the science of it and what was happening in the brain.
Yeah.
And he was saying, basically, if you're dyslexic, you've got proper dyslexia, you can see things on a mass scale that other people just can't see. Like you can see things you can't see things in a medium way. Right. He said you can see the
You're looking at a big
details
picture.
on mass scale. He said, and other people can't see that. And I thought, that's technically a type of superpower. Like, no, but if you think about Einstein, you go, it doesn't make sense. If you've got a normal brain, you can't think like that because you're not spatially maths and space. You're not picturing that out. Or even with Jobs, and you go, he doesn't know how to fucking do a single thing on a phone, but he understands how you make human beings.
Doesn't understand how to be a nice person.
Yeah. Tesla and things, you can't do simple stuff, but you can see things in pattern. I keep using the term, I see things in patterns, and I don't understand how you don't see those things. So, but you go, well, that's technically like a type of power, because these people have changed the planet.
Yes, Theo, you're a superhero.
Haha, I've got the hair.
Exactly.
I mean, it's sort
Of
of
a
falling into
supervillain.
place.
You're a super. You got
This
the
is
hair
all
of a
part of the
supervillain.
story. I wonder if it just
apart
does
from
end.
Professor X.
I was thinking Professor X. Yeah.
He's
Who's he?
bald, yeah. He's the good. Well.
Oh,
Patches,
X-Men.
Yeah, in the wheelchair. Patches.
Yeah.
Oh, he's the one that normally.
What do they call you? Wheels. I love that.
So technically, I mean, there are.
Yes, you're
things-
a superhero, Theo. Yes. Fucking hell.
I'll cover you. Have you got a cape on? Well, might as well just go with it. But no, technically, what I'm saying is there has to be leaps in human brains, and they are the people that have changed.
Maybe
the
that's
world.
what the witches would have been.
Well, E equals MC squared. That doesn't exist without dyslexia. I mean, there's literally that. If you just went, what has dyslexia done? You go iPhone. E equals MC squared. That doesn't come from a normal.
What would it
brain.
have been from would it have been D equals N?
Oh, who can for points? Who can decipher E equals MC squared?
That's easy.
Energy equals mass
Times the speed of light
squared. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
The energy in an object is equal to the
The
mass of it times the speed of light squared.
Oh, okay, there you go. Are you dyslexic?
Yes, I am.
Oh, there you go. See? Shut up.
Dyslexia.
A little bit. Like,
Isn't there a bit in the X-Men where they start thinking, oh, hang on, we're the better ones here. You lot are like apes.
the
Yeah, the mutants.
supremacists,
Yeah, it's a magnet. We are the future, Charles, not them.
I need to get myself a wheelchair. Oh, fuck, I should say. Just as I leave, you say,
Oh God.
lazing about in his wheelchair.
We've crossed the Rubicon.
right,
again.
what are we talking about?
McCarthyism. There we go. Witchcraft.
Witch hunts, dyslexia, witch hunts.
Dyslexia.
Yeah.
Okay. So, one questions: how can these things be legal? Well, it turns out that they weren't, basically, but it did take a very long time of appeals and getting to the Supreme Court in America to get a lot of these convictions overturned.
Yeah.
Under the Smith Act, there were 144 indictments. Right.
What's the Smith Act?
The
Please?
Smith Act was the act.
The actual court cases, was it?
The Smith Act was a law to make subverting American values or ideologies illegal.
So vague, isn't it?
That's what I mean.
So purpose-built.
Starts politically, then black people and white people walking down the street. You're morally destroying America.
That's what I mean. It's all so wishy-washy and vague, and you just go, well, surely this is all protected under the First Amendment of freedom of speech. Well, it was.
Yeah.
But it took a big shift. It's interesting because it took a big shift in the Supreme Court, the so-called Warren Supreme Court, of the late 60s, I think it's 56, 57. Basically, Truman, 56 actually, I think. Truman appointed a couple of Supreme Court justices, thought he'd loaded them conservatives. Turns out these guys are actually quite liberal. And they decided to, they actually had a policy of...
So Truman wanted them to what? Keep the status quo going?
Defend traditionalism and conservative values. These turned out to be the guys who...
So a little bit like when Henry II appointed his mate, Thomas Becket, thinking like, yeah, he'll let me do whatever I want. And then Thomas Becket went, nope.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's what we need William Barr to do.
But yeah, these were Brown versus the school boards, which stopped segregation in schools. Oh. They were big. They were big motivators behind the civil. They upheld a lot of the civil rights cases. They also they did a lot of good stuff. You know,
that was just a sigh of just like you just.
So what, they went against the acts or?
Yes, well, they showed them to actually be illegal because these
yeah.
people are allowed to have freedom of belief and freedom of expression and
But just
freedom
all
of
these
speech.
things, fucking like you have
All
to.
these freedoms. Guess what? They are actually allowed. You're allowed to be a communist.
You have to go to court to say that people are allowed to believe have a different political belief, or that a black kid or non-white, because obviously I'm sure it wasn't just black people being discriminated against, although I imagine it predominantly was.
Yeah.
But the fact that you go, you know what, people of different races can all go to the same school.
Which doesn't seem like a lot to ask, does it?
But it seems like, and you think like, and it's like it's within my father's lifetime.
So we got any modern day witch hunts? I suppose the Mexican thing with Trump, that's the nearest
Well,
thing.
yeah, I think.
Well, he says all that's against him is a witch hunt.
Oh yeah,
Fake news. It's all a witch hunt. Unbelievable.
And the most persecuted person in history.
I hate the fact it's around the coronavirus and all that, but I love the fact that he's
breaking news, folks.
that
Theo is against coronavirus.
He's got this wall of thing that's happening, really happening, and he's trying to sort of lie around it. And you go, well, it's happening. So when does it sort of clash where you can't deny it anymore?
Well, what's funny, I did actually watch. I watched this really bizarre press conference he gave. Surprise, he gave a bizarre press conference.
He said the first person died was a woman, turned out it was a man, so he even got that wrong.
He just can't help himself.
He said there was 6 women, 60 had already died.
But literally, he talked for about 20 minutes, and then Mike Pence came along and just deciphered it, basically, and just okay, no, what actually is going on?
I mean, we're living in
he's
a
barred doctors from speaking about it now. They have to go through the White House
because the whole thing is it's really interesting. It's really he's in the weird position because he has to be seen to be doing stuff.
Yeah. And something bad can't be
taking
happening.
It seriously, but he doesn't want to make a big deal about it because the economy, it might affect the economy. The economy is the only positive he has for re-election.
Yeah. So he has to lie about this thing that's really happening.
So he says, okay, it's a big deal. And yeah, we are doing everything we can. And, we're taking it seriously, although it's not a big deal and there's not a lot to take seriously.
It's not a bigly deal.
Yeah.
Because before or after Pence come on, because Pence didn't really know what was going on.
Well, of course not. He just woke him up from his afternoon nap.
He was saying, "Oh, Pence is this and Pence is doing that and Pence is that." And then the guy that's actually in charge of the thing, when he had to come on and sort of say, "Look, I'm sort of with him."
Pence is just sat in the corner, fixated on runaway gay teens.
I think we can all agree that Pence is perhaps a little too fixated on homosexuals.
Yeah.
I mean, he's really
guy,
sort of very, very fixated on homosexuals.
Yeah.
Is Mike Pence? Mike Pence is very, very. One could almost say obsessed with homosexuals.
Yeah.
He has quite a keen interest into homosexuals.
Well, I said before that one that knew a skinhead once, and he kept going on about gay people, and accidentally said to him once, "You don't talk about gay people a lot." And I realised as I said it, this guy.
Mike Pence is just an absolute self-hating queen. Like let's not be around the bush. He's like him and Putin are just gonna when it's all comes to, they're gonna go live on a little island together and be just the most adorable gay couple, and they'll have a little dog and
it's gonna be so happy. He's just gonna be. It's fine. He's just gonna be happy.
They'll both be free.
Because good for you.
Yeah,
well done.
Putin, can you take your top off and sit on the horse like you did in that photo?
He's just going,
to show what a man you are.
I've got a calendar. My mate gave me a calendar, a Putin calendar for.
He's just always greased up and shirt off, isn't he?
Because he's like
trying to look like a gay icon.
Yeah, he just looks.
He's
like...
not particularly well built.
No, he's got man boobs and everything. Isn't
he's
he?
like got a sort of 50-year-old potato body. Like. Do you know what I mean?
He says he's got a black belt.
Yeah, but are you going to be the one that... Are you going to throw Putin in a grapple?
He says he's like one of the top 2 people in judo or something in the world. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But you're off to the gulag if you're fucking angry with your family.
What's his name? Who's the Korean guy now? What's it? Kim Jong Un.
Jim.
I can't remember the Jim.
Steve.
Steve. Yeah, the little known of the Jong Un.
One of the guys.
Steve Jong Un.
One of the guys that escaped. He was saying how
Kim wouldn't it be? Sorry.
The guy is actually insane because he's been living in an echo chamber so long of his life.
Of course, he's insane.
He said he thinks he can like time travel and anything.
I didn't know that.
Anything he does, people rally around to bolster up that lunacy. So he then thinks he is, and he when he was doing he thinks he can. He keeps hitting holes in one when he plays golf.
Yeah, but that goes back to his father, isn't it? And grandfather.
They have
got 18 holes in one.
And perfect shot. He fired 10 shots and got 10 bullseyes.
But they're putting the balls in there for him. But that's then bolstering up his lunacy to thinking he is a god.
But you've got to think. Do you think really deep in his heart of hearts that he believes?
I don't know. I think if you're from a kid, then you probably
I
don't know any
suppose
better.
that's the thing, isn't it? He is just.
And if everyone around you is doing them things, so you don't know they're doing them things.
I think after a while you don't give a fuck. Like whether it's real or not, it's happening, and you don't give a fuck. Because if you pretend to be, if you play that role, if you wear the mask, every day, then that becomes you.
If you've come to like, if that's a Hitler type thing, I understand that, or a Putin. But if from a child you've had godlike powers, and everyone around you has been doing
what happened when he was born? Was it the glacier cracked, or there was a double?
Yeah, there's some sorts. There's
triple
always a
rainbow.
story.
There's always some with all of them, isn't it? Yeah.
But if you've grown up in that, you're the child of that. Then you can't imagine what that is, because that's a different type of human being.
I mean, when we talk about McCarthy, you feel like this doesn't sound. The irony, as you're saying, of like, you try to protect freedom by taking it away. Yeah. If we didn't know about McCarthy, because it's one of these words that's just entered common parlance, isn't it? McCarthyism,
conceptually, as well. A concept.
It's almost one of those things that I can't remember. It was someone was talking about how ideas permeate, and so there was their little kid one time. I think they said something about having the dad said, "Oh, I'm just gonna have a shower and then we'll go to the park, whatever," and the kid went, "Ree, ree, ree, ree," the psycho thing.
Yeah.
Never seen it. She's never seen it.
He's
she's a child. She's never seen Psycho, of course not. But it just permeated. So, but if we didn't know that McCarthyism was an American thing, if someone just said to you, "Oh, there was a time where people were put on trial for being communists and blah blah blah," and you think like, "What, in Nazi Germany, in Russia, in wherever?" Well, obviously it wouldn't be Russia because it's communist, but you know what I mean. Like that, you would think
for being a wrong type of communist.
Yeah. So I suppose if you were Trotskyite, but you know what I mean. You would think that was some fascist or some dictatorship. Country. I know some lefty loonies are thinking, America is shut up. But you know what I mean? Like, you would think it was some dictatorship, and it's America, land of the free, home of the brave, and all that kind of stuff.
Accusing people of hiding behind the Fifth Amendment, you go, well, hang on.
Don't have it then.
Fifth Amendment communists.
I think in this country we don't have the Fifth Amendment, do we? We have, but
I think so.
You do have a right
not to self-incriminate.
Yes, if you're interviewed, you are allowed to say no comment.
Yeah,
we don't,
and they advise you to say it. The police will advise you.
In trial,
to say
you
that.
can't though, can you? That's I believe that once it comes to
well,
trial.
if you say if you don't say anything, then there is. The idea of Fifth Amendment is that by remaining silent, there isn't a presumption of guilt.
Yeah.
That you're not allowed to say, okay, because I didn't answer that question, then I'm obviously guilty.
But we don't.
In England, we don't have that.
We don't have a set of laws as like template laws because we've never had have we? I don't know.
Like the Bill of Rights.
Yeah, we've never had a point where things have fallen apart so much that we've had to sit down and go, right, how are we going to run this place? Because there's always been an ultimate sort of power. It's never got to the point where it's had to fall apart and go, right, we've got right to...
Like say about constitution.
But in this country, everything is almost always built on precedent. Almost all law is built on precedent.
Magna Carta, was that land?
The Magna Carta was basically a bunch of barons going,
you own this and I own that.
Yeah, I own this and you own that.
It's a lot about grazing rights and stuff. It's not.
Yeah,
but
we don't have a set of.
Yeah, although it's taxation without representation, it's for the rich bastards at the top. It's not for people.
Yeah.
The only thing the only real thing was habeas corpus.
Don't incriminate yourself. Sort of thing.
No. That you couldn't. There had to be a reason why you were arresting people. Essentially, habeas corpus is I think the transliteration is sort of show me the body. You have to show the body. So
corpse. Right.
Yeah. So you can't just say you stole something. I'm arresting you for theft. Theft of what? Theft. Theft of what though? What did I steal? What am I being accused of?
Well, not even that. We're just arresting you.
It used to be. Or just
we're just arresting you because your eyes are funny.
Because you've spoken out against
these weren't all set in one place. It's just things. That
it's all the things that gradually come. Well, I mean, a little bit like we were talking about the Witch Act. So there were acts to say that people could be tried for witchcraft under different acts. So, for example, under under Queen. Mary the First. I think was an act, then Queen Elizabeth, and then under James VI of Scotland, First of England, and then it wasn't until 1735 they said, right, we need enough of this nonsense.
So the
about
Witch Act was
witches.
actually to protect people.
It was actually to protect,
Yeah.
but it was used against Victoria Helen McRae Duncan to stop her. You know, it was just like, because other people were saying she was a witch, they just used it, they twisted it basically, but tweaked it.
Why didn't they just get a duck and put it on scales?
I was going to say, are the blasphemy laws still on the books?
Yes, because they're not enforced.
Yeah, well, it's a weird thing that they're still there, and it's a weird thing that I find it funny that no government will stand up and try and repeal them.
Well, I suppose because you wouldn't get it through the Lords.
You wouldn't. Well, they didn't. I think it's like it's like the. Well, I'm not going to go into that, but like it's like no one wants their name on the. I'm the guy who got rid of blasphemy. You know what I mean?
I think it's also. I wonder if also because so much of things to do with the Queen and hence law is to do with God. So, for example, she's Elizabeth II, second by the grace of God, Queen of England, Scotland, blah blah blah. God save the Queen.
Yeah. So times have changed. It's just having got round to getting rid of the laws. But they are technically there.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is, so blasphemy law is because someone made a complaint about Stephen Fry because he did that sort of quasi-famous, it went viral where he did an interview and, because someone said to him, I can't remember the broadcaster's name of this, one of his signature questions was, you go to heaven, pearly gates, blah, 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 what do you say to God? And his thing was, I would say, how dare you? I think his opening thing was, bone cancer in children? What's that about?
Yeah.
And then he just went on this big diatribe. He said, yes, the world is very splendid, but there's also a parasitic worm whose whole life cycle is to burrow into a child's eye and make them blind. Why you can make a universe without that if you're all powerful, and we have to go around on our knees.
I don't know what their answer
you.
is for that. If your kids, if you just go, will children die? What's the? They just go to the.
Okay.
Oh God, here he goes.
He's going back to Tibet. His teachings in Tibet.
No, but the idea of
Father Kirby.
It's like.
It's
evil,
just you don't understand the bigger picture. Is that what it comes
evil in
down
the
to?
world? The argument, traditionally, the Christian argument is about free will, in that we have to have free will in the world. Therefore, evil exists.
Oh, it's just handy.
Well, this is the interesting thing about the whole witches. Whether they went, they weren't witches because God wouldn't allow devils and all that kind of stuff, and that's not. If you're by acknowledging them, you're essentially believing them. So, but then it became actually there is evil. We need to burn it at the stake horribly, kill it with fire.
I see a documentary was on YouTube, and it was this guy in America. It was about 10 years ago, quite a fairly youngish.
We definitely need a cafetiere in here, don't we? I feel like
what's that?
Just to fill the coffees.
We're going to go for another hour.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
He was talking about exorcisms. He's going, look, people laugh at it and all that. He said it's a big part of the church. He said we just don't talk about it. They come to you and explain things to you.
Pope, John Paul II did 2 exorcisms, I believe.
Oh, really? What, JP2? Okay.
JP2.
The return.
I preferred JP1.
But he was...
JP3,
he was
Requiem.
quite sort of honest about it.
Separates him from John Paul and Ringo, doesn't it? So.
Yeah.
He was saying, he was very honest. He said, I understand why people think, but he said, it is a real thing. He said, I went into it thinking, what, is this real? You actually do these sort of things. And I said, but he was like asking them questions about how they... that you can't go to them and study it. They'll just find a person they think... then you get sent away to be mentored by somebody because they assume you're not going to believe in it. So you have to go around with somebody else and watch them do it. And he said, after a couple of them, I started to realise certain things. And he said, it's only the actual exorcists know who the other exorcists are because you've got a certain amount per area.
They're
do they have a secret handshake?
And I was like... He goes, a lot of times he said, we go to these places and it's just mental health. He said, that's the majority. And you have to go and you think it is, you then go back with somebody who's an expert in that.
They're quite, the standards are quite high.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say. Like they do acknowledge that. They're not like, it's obviously demons.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? They go, the light's flickering a bit, demons. You know.
Yeah, I think they often approach more from a position of skepticism, which is very...
he says we go there
contrary
to
what we
think. Yeah.
But he said the fact that we have to be mentored into believing these things because they know you aren't going to believe them. Yeah. And he said after 2, I suddenly realised, this is a real thing. Yeah. And the guy that was speaking to him, the reporter, it's like a 2-hour documentary. He said, tell me some of the things that you realise. He said, well, look, he went over the mental health, said, use it's this, sometimes it's that. He said, some people, time they're acting, there's nothing wrong with them, they're acting in a certain way. It's for attention. He said, you have to filter through all these issues. Yeah. He said, but then you get a real case. And he said, you know it's a real case straight away. And he said there was one where the girl was speaking in a language where he had to come back with 2 separate people before they could decipher the type of language that she was speaking that didn't exist anymore. And they got this one guy who knew certain words from this language. And you go, fucking, like...
It is weird.
I talked to a monk. I went to a monastic school for a while, so I got taught by monks and stuff. So one of the monks there, he said that he had sat in on at least one exorcism, and he was very skeptical, and he was a very nice, normal dude, and he said, he's skeptical, and I'm still skeptical about the whole thing. He said, but stuff happened, like that I can't explain. He's like, and I never thought, and he obviously believes in God, and he's dedicated his life and everything to prayer and all this crap, and good on him. But like he said, there was stuff I couldn't explain. There's stuff I still couldn't explain now. And like he said, I'm still skeptical, and I don't necessarily believe there was demons or anything. I don't know, but like there was stuff that I don't know what the hell it was.
It was like me being here the other day. I was talking about before the podcast when I sat here at like 2 a.m. doing some stuff, and I think there's fucking something in here.
I feel like for the benefit of the tape, what were you doing here?
I was just doing work. Okay, when everyone's sleeping as you, I'm having to do work, so I had to come here to do some stuff. But
I love.
Well, I don't. Would you
being guilt tripped into sleeping?
While
everyone was sleeping, I was writing
by candlelight.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, there was definitely something in here because I don't ever think that. And then I just fucking, even to the point where I was walking out the door, I wasn't looking down because I thought, these old Victorian places, before it became a posh area, it's probably a lot of unhappiness. And what was the Rigsby?
And it was drawn to you, the unhappiness.
What was that? With Rigsby, what was that comedy called?
Rising Damp.
Rising Damp, yeah. And they do the one about the grey lady. It was a comedy and about the grey lady. And he goes, "There's been a lot of sadness in here," He goes, "There still is." Yeah. So ghosts, which we're sort of coming back around to how we started.
Ghosts and witches and spirits.
Well, that was weird that I was talking about that.
Yeah,
the ghost was here.
So, so McCarthyism basically public support. It's the wrong way. Who was the have you no decency, sir? Person?
No, that wasn't McCarthy, was it?
That was McCarthy.
Was it? Because that was Nixon. That was to do with Nixon, wasn't it? Have you no decency, sir?
No, I'm sure McCarthy was. It was one of the defenders. It was someone who was defending someone who was accused. It was a young man, and he just said, "You can't just keep asking."
I think it wasn't Nixon, where he wasn't admitting to things.
I think I thought it was a Democratic senator.
Yeah, and they just said basically, you can't keep asking. You can't keep asking.
Right, you're right.
We told you again. Stop asking. These people are maybe this.
Because he'd accused somebody that he was coming in defence of. It was one of his kids. Somebody that worked for him. He'd come in as a referee for, and he was saying to him, "Like, leave these kids alone."
Yeah,
have you no decency?
Yeah, and he just said, "Have you no at last, sir? After all this, have you no decency?" And that was the end. That was seen as the sucker punch.
Yeah.
For it.
Well, as I said, but they had a few cases overturned in the Supreme Court, and some of the people who were convicted or found guilty, at the very least, they started suing people because these were shown to be. The blacklistings were shown to be kind of unconstitutional, effectively. They started suing people for loss of earnings. That was the real indicator. And all of a sudden, everyone was like, "Oh!" The industry was like, "Oh God!"
Once you start getting sued,
this is costing us money. Shit. So all of a sudden, like that was one of the big instigating things. And they started suing people for loss of earnings, people for slander and stuff, and libel, and then the system kind of slowly worked.
Was Fatty Arbuckle? Did he come under that, the blacklisting?
No, that was because he an actress died.
Accusations,
and it was all these made up lascivious stories that
I thought that was
that he basically sexually assaulted her so badly that she died. I believe that's it roughly. And then but all evidence actually acquitted. Most of it was he was essentially acquitted. I think he got tried twice, but essentially the offence bungled it. So the first, because they just said any good lawyer would have got him off straight away, but it never went away, and that was it. I think he came back as different. Every comeback was failed, and he just lived his life as
there was a burger chain called Fatty Arbuckles, wasn't there?
Yeah, probably. I don't know if you want to name it, which is an odd thing to name yourself after, but perhaps to try and rehabilitate his image.
Oh, might have been, yeah.
But yeah, so he just lived his life as he just had tiny little supporting roles in films and that, but not under the name, and changed his appearance.
But one thing with McCarthyism as well is one can ask the question: communism is tied in a lot of people's minds to Judaism,
but as anti-Semitism, yeah.
Yes,
right.
It is it's often the global communist expansion program is often said to be part of the global Jewish conspiracy, and the two.
Oh, was it? I thought it was part of. I thought the communists were against. The idea was the communism was against Judaism.
Yes, it is in real life. In real life, Stalin was anti-Semitic, and they killed lots of people and they oppressed Jews awfully. However, Karl Marx was Jewish.
Yeah.
Therefore, in stupid people's minds, Jewish people are communist, and they're all working together to.
So, what do they think about Bernie Sanders being a socialist? Because he's Jewish, isn't he?
Yes.
So is that
he'd be part of the because he'd be part of the. To some people,
the takeover.
He would be part of the global Jewish conspiracy. When people talk of the global Jewish conspiracy, the Jewish question.
But isn't socialism the opposite of that? Isn't it technically communism?
It's a bizarre theory that this group of Jewish people are trying to create a group of wealthy Jewish people are trying to take over the world and then create a communist state and give away all their money.
Oh right, okay.
It doesn't make any sense.
I've said it before. I said we need to get like some expert in anti-Semitism and just come in here and like they're just gonna have to explain it to me with fucking.
I did try to get on the priest and the man and
you were trying to tell a joke.
Yeah, it sounds like great.
No, but I literally did. So I thought it'd be good to get a different perspective on them. I got the priest on, but then the other two didn't even respond. Even from multiple attempts. Yeah, it's silly. So Kerem's been shifting around for a while now.
He has been. Yep. He's finished his game of Angry Birds.
Yeah, he's done his hair up nicely.
I know. Look
at weight
with his
training
shaved
again.
head.
His weight training. Just got to get a sheet to wrap around him, and that'll be one down.
Beg your pardon. What's going on?
The cult. Okay,
the cult. Right. I was like,
I still think you can have a good cult. I think it's not a bad thing.
I just think you can't call it a cult. I think you call it the self-improvement, self-help group. Yeah?
No, if you did that would be a problem. I think if you go balls at it and go, no, look, this is what it is. We're not trying to hide what this is. It's a good cult. Because it's just a group of people, really.
I got a story. Okay, I've got a story for me. I'll tell you off air back.
Okay.
How long is the story about?
No, I'm not going to say.
All right. Well, listen.
You filthy tease. So which hunt's bad? Is what we've learned today.
Unless it's against Trump.
And
then burn him.
Jesus.
I said Bernie him.
Bernie him. Oh, Boo Earns. I was saying Boo Earns.
I had one leg in the hole.
Exactly.
But I mean, people will say that cancel culture and people clamouring to get fired for
What's cancel culture?
That's sort of an online phenomenon where people will gang up and call for people to be fired from jobs or positions. Yeah. For making,
I was finding cancelled. They're like, "Oh, so and so's cancelled."
Yeah.
I'm like, "But they're there. They're not cancelled, you cretin."
I've decided that their career is over.
Delete.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there are people now trying to get other people to lose their jobs or their livelihood for making political statements they don't like or making jokes they don't like.
There was one recently with Lawrence Fox.
Oh.
So he basically, I did think what he'd said was very clumsy, and I think he misunderstood the term. He was on Question Time, and I didn't see it, so I'm only going by what I've read. But apparently, someone said that he had or is an exemplifier of white privilege.
Who's he?
Lawrence Fox.
Who is he?
So he's a British actor, sort of from the, I suppose you would call the
Lewis.
Fox dynasty. Yeah, he's in Lewis.
He's
so there's Edward Fox
News.
and.
I can't remember. But
there's the two Fox brothers who are the elder Edward and.
But his dad was quite.
Yeah, there's two of them. Yeah, two.
You're talking about Fox Media?
No, nothing to do with Fox Media.
Actors,
no.
they're just actors.
Actors,
right.
yeah.
You
so
probably would have seen them.
Yeah, there's a second. So, have you ever seen the film Day of the Jackal?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, the assassin in that, because that's Edward Fox, and there's the other Fox. That's really pissed me off. Never mind. So they're from like an acting family. I would say they're quite posh, or they're perceived as quite posh. They're certainly very well spoken, etc. And yeah, so someone said, "Oh, you're an exemplifier of white privilege." And whatnot. He just said, "Oh, the term white privilege is a racist term. You're being racist by saying white privilege and things like that." And I think he misunderstood or anyway, whatever. He just said it was right, and that's fine. It's like, I don't agree with what you said, and I think you've probably misunderstood what that means, but that's fine, and perhaps I misunderstands what it means, and who knows. But then Equity, the Actors Union, released a thing saying that all actors should stop working with Lawrence Fox. He should not be hired for things like that.
Yeah, that should be.
But then there was an immediate Equity.
That's a bit much for the union.
Yeah, but there was a members backlash going, sorry, I wasn't consulted about this. Yeah. I'm a member. I'm a card carrying member. And I don't mean that in the pejorative. You literally have you have a card. So I'm a union. I'm a member of this union, and I wasn't asked.
You won't get me. I'm part of the union.
Yeah, but it was just like, when we asked about this,
well, it's good that you got McCarthyism to use as a word to point out what we're doing here again.
And then hilariously, I think less than a week later, after they retracted that statement and said, "Oh, that was released from because all these unions have 47,983 million committees within them, which is why nothing ever gets done."
But especially with they've already been persecuted once, the actors, so they're not going to go for all that again.
So hilariously, they then, about a week later, they were like, "Oh, we set up this special Equity mental health phone line," and everyone went, "Well, maybe the first person to call that should be Lawrence Fox, since you insisted that no one should work with him, hire him, or everything else like that." Because he released a statement.
You blacklisted him.
Yeah, you essentially tried to blacklist him, and he released a statement saying, "I just feel." He's off Twitter now, basically. I don't know if he's gone on it, because I don't use Twitter all that much, but it was quite an interesting story. And you just go, oh, okay. So the union that's meant to protect actors from things like witch hunts did itself.
Well, it's calling it white privilege doesn't really help, does it? I mean, there is a privilege there, but it's the white thing. There's no need for that. You could just say historical privilege.
Well, it's privilege specifically for it's for you being white.
I can understand. I know what you mean, but I think
there's a conversation for another day.
Yeah, so that's going to take up another. It's about 3 hours.
Yeah,
of podcast
there's 3 hour discussion here.
Yeah, let's have three, broadly speaking, white people talk about why white privilege is a bad word.
Have you got anything else to say? Is that the Bible
just
you
in general
that you carry with you, or is that your...
This is my notebook.
It's like Donald Trump. I carry this with me everywhere.
It's just got big words. It's just got giant writing in there. No, it's just notes and stuff, and tea stained, unfortunately, dreadfully.
Oh, okay. In an attempt to age it to make
it look make it look fancy. Yeah, I do always feel like it's Indiana Jones. He's got his Grail diary. In it. What does a diary tell you that it does not tell us? It tells me that goose-stepping morons like you should try reading books instead of burning them. That was one of my favourite lines. Boom, boom. Just like, you showed the Nazi
he drops his mic.
Yeah, exactly.
Where's that mic from?
Charles, anything to say? You're done.
Yeah, I think.
Okay, one last thing, just because it's one of the best lines in Indiana Jones, nothing to do with witch hunts here, but we'll end on this, is that there's that famous line where... he says they realise that the woman is the spy, that the love interest, and Indiana Jones says to Sean Connery, "How do you?" So Indy says to his father,
"Oh, she talks in her
sleep." How do you know? How do you know she was a Nazi? She talks in her sleep, and that was an ad-lib line. Really? The crew laughed so much they decided to keep it in.
That's great. Though,
which I think was brilliant.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, she probably banged Sean Connery.
I was listening to something about John Wayne again. They were saying, I can't remember what film it was, but they come to a head where he'd been doing acting for so long he couldn't do anything other than a John.
It's not the Centurion thing.
No, there wasn't that.
That's
but the guy had to say to him, "Look, can you say it again? Not like you." And he actually said to the director, "What do you mean?" He said, "I am John Wayne." He didn't get the idea. No, you got to put on. What did you see the film? What was he? A Mongol?
Oh God, where he plays Genghis Khan. Yeah.
My blood boils for the Tartar princess.
The Conqueror.
Can you
please put a John Wayne impression?
Can you please put an accent? But he actually,
I don't know if it's better or worse for him to have the accent. He's already got the Fu Manchu and the slit-eyed makeup.
Can you not say it like John Wayne? He said, "But I am John Wayne." You go, "Oh my God!"
But it is a little bit like, why would you hire John Wayne to not be John Wayne?
Yeah.
But also, why would you hire John Wayne to play Genghis Khan?
There are certain,
I think
every
he
film
executive produced it.
the films basically have to be writ around the fact that he's just him.
Well, that was but that's the joke about the greatest story ever told, isn't it? And he plays the centurion Longinus, who professes this is truly this is the Son of God.
Oh,
the joke was
this is the Son of
and
God.
And they said to him, no, say it with awe, and he went, truly this is the Son. He didn't really. That's just the joke. Anyhow,
right, well, there you go.
Anyway,
so, we're all done.
Ask your great grandparents who John Wayne was. And thanks very much, everyone.
Cheers.
Bye.